Hello and welcome everyone. Hey, Kyle just became an adventurer. Awesome, fantastic. Hello everybody. How's everybody doing this evening? Merry Christmas to all if you celebrate. If you don't celebrate, well, that's all right. Hopefully you had a wonderful holiday season if one of your holidays falls within the last couple of weeks. And if you don't do any of that, I'm still happy that you're able to make it here with us for these, we'll call them end of year festivities. So, of course, it is Monday. We normally don't have a live stream on Monday. However, we had a tip goal a number of weeks ago, which you also generously contributed to. And as a result, we are going to be streaming every single day this week. Now, I will give you a heads up that tomorrow, Tuesday, and Thursday's stream will likely be at our 7 p.m. Eastern time as usual. However, Wednesdays and Fridays streams, I am trying to do early in the day, probably around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that would be 4, 5, or 6 hours earlier than we normally go live because I'm off for the week. Do not have any work to do, so that's great. And of course, give maybe some people who normally don't have an opportunity to join our streams to give a chance. And a lot of people who would join our stream normally are going to be off from work, so it's kind of a double benefit. We got a ton of people in chat, including my good friend and co-host Bob, who says, see you tomorrow, Derek. Bob is going to be running Dragonbane tomorrow for myself and a couple of our friends. I'm not exactly sure who's coming. I imagine Bob's brother is going to be there, who, of course, played Villic in Rise of the Runelords. I think it's possible Nick might be there as well. Most recently from our Root campaign, but of course Escanor. Oh, just Danny and his friend Josh. All right. So Dragonbane tomorrow. We're going to be playing in the middle of the day. I do not know the system, so this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for me to judge the shit out of Bob, because he's going to have to teach me the rules. I don't know them. I have not read the book. I have not. It came out of Gen Con. I missed it. I had a million other things to do. Darkwing Duck, turned me off on the cover. So I kind of passed. I'm not saying it's not a good system. I'm just saying, I saw the cover. I said, I got enough stuff going on. I don't need the duck. So this is going to be an opportunity for me to really put the screws into Bob and see how he does. Anyways, so Merry Christmas to everybody. Let me just really quickly say thank you to Kyle for 2 months of being an adventurer. We also have Darren Anderson and C. Cav, along with Gossamer Sarah, who recently had their anniversaries. Thank you especially to C. Cav for 20 months of supporting this channel. I think that means that they have been supporting us for pretty much as long as we've been doing this. So thank you so much to everybody. So we're going to have a couple of, we had our patrons vote, and we're going to be taking a look at some specific topics throughout the course of this week. However, there was a couple votes for first looks. There was some votes for, there was a vote for us to make Forbidden Lands characters. Unfortunately, Aaron is going to be still super busy. I feel so bad for the guy. He was so looking forward to taking off literally almost the entire month of December. Instead, he has exactly worked pretty much every single day in the month of December. And as a result, he's not going to be around for this week's holiday streams. So we're probably not going to be able to make characters together or do any of our fun group activities because, without Aaron, it's a little bit lacking. But that being said, well, I'm sure we'll get to some of this. But it looks like we're going to be doing a Ryutama first look. We also, thanks to the continued support of Ryan, we are going to be doing a Wild Sea first look. And I'm trying to hopefully have none other than Mr. Ben himself, Ben Asaro, onto the stream, back on the stream, coming in on the end of the week. So hopefully we'll have some guests and we'll have some fun streams and we'll talk about a bunch of stuff. Alan, thank you so much for that very generous super chat to start us off. New to the channel and Pathfinder 2nd Edition, currently making my way through the VODs on the archetypes and loving it. Excited I caught the stream tonight and excited for it. Merry Christmas. Well, thank you, Alan, for the support. Yeah, the archetype streams, that is something actually, Alan, that I want to go back and revisit. I was going to wait until Core 2 came out, but then I kind of, I guess I was thinking Core 2 was going to be coming out in like February or March originally. I wasn't thinking that Core 2 isn't going to be coming out until like Gen Con, aka next summer. It's because I was like, oh, I'll just wait till all the core classes are out, and then I'll reevaluate the archetypes, reevaluate the classes. And so, I don't think we'll ever be able to make it go back through the archetypes, but they have changed some of them. And so, especially with the second one, we'll be interested to see if they change, some of the stuff, because a lot of stuff has changed in core, more than people think it has. So, but yeah, the archetypes was a hell of a run, and I'm glad we did it. Let's see here. The duck was pretty weird to point blank as well. Yeah, look, it's just, it's one of those things where it's like you either think it's fine, like dragon person, sure. Bird person, maybe, but duck person, I don't know. We all have our different, takes. The game will not remain the same. Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered, I would say, is the same game. However, it has changed just enough to be annoying. It'd be like, it's like your car, right? If someone like moves the height of your car seat, or they move the angle of your steering wheel, you could still drive your car. It's the same car, but it's just enough different to be like, I notice it and it's kind of annoying. And yes, you'll get used to it eventually. But in the meantime, you're like, why'd you mess with my seat height? Come on. That's how I feel. I mean, there's probably some improvements overall, but overall. Merry Christmas to you as well, Tim. Glad to see you are here as well. Happy holidays. Again to Mallard Melinda. Yeah, that might have to be my character's name. Do want to again shout out Mr. Boothby, who once again sent us a nice holiday package of treats and goodies, as he did last year. Last year, I ate them all. This year, I'm hopefully going to be sharing them with at least Bob, because I'm not going to see Aaron. He's going to be really busy at work. So I'll be sure to give Bob some of the delicious snacks tomorrow. But I'll save some for Smith, just so he can get a chance as well. I literally have not seen my friends and coworkers in weeks, in actual weeks. Everyone has been so incredibly busy and out of pocket. I haven't played RPGs in over a month. We got together at the beginning of December. So not actually over a month, but like 3 weeks. We got together at the beginning of December to finish off Abomination Vaults. And thank God we managed to finish it off in one session. Aaron did some pretty creative stuff with his spellcasting. They were like a level higher, I think, than the adventure ever intended them to be. So they were able to make some pretty quick progress. And as a result, they were able to finish thank God, because otherwise we would have been like with 1 or 2 encounters left, and we've been waiting this whole month. We wouldn't have been able to do it until next year. So anyways, it's just one of those things that worked out that way, that we've just been super busy and not had a chance to get to play. So anyways, so tonight, because it's holiday, it is Christmas, I'm just here to hang out with you all. We have a tip goal that is for the whole week, which is just, saying thank you. It's a thanking to the knights, it's thanking to me, but in a way it's also thankful, for you all, because of how much you've supported this channel this year. It's just been a really, really great and fun year for us. And not to toot my own horn, which is a little weird to say this, because the other channels in my space have grown 3, 4, 5, 10 times as much as I did this year. There are channels that started off the year, we were pretty much neck and neck. I had 8,000 subs or something, and they had like 9,000, 10,000. Now I have over 10,000 something, 500, and they have 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. And why is that? Well, quite frankly, it's because of clickbait, and it's because they'd made a lot of videos about hot topics and drama. And I think by and large, the vast majority, and this is not, I'm not targeting out any specific, content creator. And I also think that there are some content creators out there who legitimately were adding a lot of value to the stories that were coming out. They were, They had insider information. They knew people in the industry that they could bring on and interview and talk about certain aspects of it. OGL drama, there's been a million dramas this year, right? But other people were just, rehashing what they said, rehashing what other people said. I'm going to read from you what you could go read on Kotaku. I'm going to basically read from you what Linda Kodega said on Roll for Combat stream, right? So there's like a bunch of stuff where it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If people make those videos and people want to go click on those videos, that's fine. That is actually totally fine. It's good. I mean, obviously there's a demand for it. There's a need for it. And they went ahead and did that. No Roll for Combat shade. I mean, I tease Steven for making his clickbait thumbnails, and he'll be the first to admit them that, it is clickbaity. But it's more like, what am my tip? Did my tip not work? I saw a tip from Satir. So no, it's more like, I think Roll for Combat, by and large, was, trying to actually bring legitimate news. But they still benefited greatly from, following the course of the drama. But I'll talk about that in 1 second. I want to see why my tip. Okay, well, apparently it is working. I just don't know what happened.
Lolly Candy tip $10. Shout out to all the people on the Co-LC Discord. There are too many to name.
Thank you, Lollipop, for that shout out. I don't know why Satir's got missed, but I will make sure to focus on theirs in a second. So Lollipop said, shout out to all the people on the KLC Discord. There are too many to name. Yes. The Knights of the Last Call Discord is truly the heart of this community. And even if this channel didn't exist, I would keep the Discord going, just because I think it's an incredible community and an incredible resource. So incredible. Satir, sorry your message got eaten, but Satir said, it is the season of giving. Thank you for another great year of combat. Well, thank you, Satir, for your continued support, and I appreciate that tip. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lollipop, for your tip as well. Creatures, lol, creators. Yes. It's because they play the algorithm game as they should if it's their livelihood. I don't blame any content creators for seeing to their financial security. And I want to be clear about something. I completely agree with that. However, that being said, I do think that by and large, I think a lot of content creators have gotten away from actually making useful TTRPG content. And because rightfully so, because when you talk about role-playing games the way that we do here on this channel, you don't get a lot of views. When you explore the depths of the role-playing game hobby and you try to dredge up, games like Torchbearer or Ars Magica or whatever, you're not going to get rewarded by the algorithm. You're not going to get rewarded, which is fine. And the reason I say that's fine is because we have found you, this audience. Because we have a Patreon, we have a community of people who come out to these streams, who support us with tips and super chats that make this whole thing for us. Is it a grand slam home run? We can all quit our jobs? No, but it is financially viable. We're not losing money, and that's really cool for us because it means that we can kind of have our integrity and talk about the things that we're actually passionate about. Look. It's not that I don't talk about the 5th edition or OGL stuff because I have this overwhelming sense of integrity. I mean, I like to think that I do, but the truth of the matter is I just don't care. I really don't care. To be honest with you, I don't think most of these content creators cared either. I think there are probably a few people who were really affected and they cared a lot, but by and large, I think even the people who were upset about it, they don't care either. I think everybody was just so caught up in this cycle of rage and it was really, really disappointing to me. And so Knights of the Last Call remained blissfully ignorant. And while other channels saw, 20, 30,000 subs gained, hey, Shadram, thank you.
Shadram tip $10. Merry Christmas, Knights.
Merry Christmas to you as well, Shadram. Thank you so much for your support today and throughout the year. That you've been incredibly supportive of us, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you. very, very much for all that. But yeah, so again, there's obviously a need for it. People do click on it. People want to know information. That's fine. But the thing is like, okay, if Roll for Combat covered something and 5 other channels covered it and 35 other channels covered it, what do I have to add? Nothing. I'm not some industry insider. I'm not a publisher. I don't have any skin in the game. So what do I care? And so we got to talk about a lot of obscure concepts and ideas of RPG philosophy, of weird games that no one's ever going to play. And we were able to do that because of you. So, in a sense, the reason why this channel can't grow is because of you. Because I respect you all too much as an audience to just fill the stuff with crap. Now, so yeah, again, it's one of those things where it's like, I wish that the world worked differently, but it does not. And so here we are. And so the reason why tonight's more of a holiday celebration stream. It is Christmas after all. But technically, the winning vote on our Patreon poll was, and we'll talk about this tonight, by the way. We'll get the whiteboard busted out. It was a topic selected or added by the Unfortunate Pumpkin, which won, tied for first place, I should say, which was creative versus tactical agendas in combat. And, here's the thing. Will we talk about that? Of course we will. Do I have any delusions that if I were to make a YouTube thumbnail and title with things like tactical versus creative agendas in combat, that I'm going to get any number of viewers? Of course not. I'm not delusional. I understand that is not how you, bring in the viewers. If I said, 5e is failing, here's why. If I said, here are the worst 5e adventures, here are the best 5e adventures, that would give me a lot of views. I could probably do the same thing about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But I don't do those things because other people are already doing them. And more importantly, I just don't care. I'd rather talk about tactical versus creative agendas in combat. Lovefist says, lol, what? Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Lol, what? So obviously tonight, if you have any questions, this is kind of a freebie. It's really all over the place. I have no super specific topic other than talking a little bit, at least at some point, about this. So if you have a concern or a comment or a question or a topic or a lingering puzzle in your mind about role-playing games, about the art and science of game mastery, about campaign or adventure creation, of just about figuring out what it is that you're looking for in this space, tonight's the night to sort of do that. Again, this is more of a celebration stream, and so I'm really looking just kind of hang out with all of you. We're going to be streaming every day this week, so I don't really feel a super pressing need to, get through our topic and get through our stuff. That being said, I will have to now that if Ben confirms that he's going to be on Friday, I'll have to have a secondary poll with for what the patrons want to see me and Ben talk about, debate perhaps. Ben and I don't always agree on everything, but I've learned a lot from him, and hopefully he's learned a lot from me. See, Lollipop, you're already better at this than me. Top 5 tricks to make your D&D creative, cinematic, and tactical. People were talking last time. They're like, oh, we should clip this because Aaron, we were talking about Ars Magica, and Aaron put it into Chat GPT, and he said, hey, make me a script for like a 6-minute, 7-minute typical YouTube, video about Ars Magica. And it spit out this script, and I said the script on the stream, and exciting tactical adventure, the magic comes alive. And, it was pretty funny, but yeah, you could do that stuff. It works. I mean, that's the sad truth. 5e compatible combat agendas. Top 10 amazing agenda differences. The only word that confuses me in that sentence is agendas. Maybe it confuses me as well. Listen, I didn't make the topic. Somebody else did. Top 10 things that won't get views. Now that we could make a great video on. Psychodemus, well, I'm glad you caught us live. That's awesome. Jackal says, doing some cooking. Just wanted to give a big ol' Merry Christmas to Derek and the Knights. Well, thank you, Jackal. Appreciate you being here and appreciate your support throughout the year. Top 500 5e magical items with Ben A and KOLC. Cheers from the Euroland. It is 1:20 a.m. at the end of the world. Just popping in to say hello for the first time live. Well, Lord of the Aces, welcome to the stream. In case you missed it, Lord, we are going to be doing some streams earlier this week in the day. So potentially on Wednesday and Thursday, you might be able to catch it at a more reasonable, or sorry, Wednesday and Friday, you might be able to catch it at a more reasonable hour. So maybe you'll be in luck and join in. Yeah. So anyways, like I said, if you have a comment or question, let me know in the chat. Let me see how we're doing. Hopefully everybody had a good Christmas. Hopefully everybody is going to, be playing some games and doing some other stuff. Learn this one trick. You just want to know. London. Well, thank you very much, London. Thank you.
London tipped $10. Merry Christmas all. On a very personal note, Derek, thank you for creating and cultivating a place for me to find such wonderful friends and fellow gamers. Love this community.
Well, London, thank you so much for being a part of the community, for being a leader in that community. Everybody that participates in the community has been a big part of the success. We do have some people within our Patreon community, some people in here tonight, people like London, people like Ben, who are leaders within that community and really sort of set the tone by running a lot of games. Being a game master is a generous act of selfless giving, in my experience, in my belief. And I think that, without game masters, games don't happen. So by and large, I think the success of the Knights of Last Call as a Discord, as a gaming platform, is that we have so many people in there who are game masters. And I think inherently being a game master and having that experience makes you a more appreciative gamer, humble gamer, patient gamer. And so you have this radical difference in the makeup and the tone of the games that are going on within our community. And, Ben, we've been gaming our faces off for the past few days. Yeah. Ben came in with I finally wrapped up my sessions for the year. And he's like, well, my AD&D games, that is. And then proceeds to run like 4 different games. Wait, 4 different games, 4 different systems, 4 different groups in like 4 days. So I don't know how he does it. He's a machine. He's just a machine. Interestingly, I did also learn that MCDM is going to be doing like a playtest release tomorrow. So looking forward to taking a look at that as well. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that this week. There's just so many great, amazing, awesome, cool games out there. And, yes. And Ben does archery, and he hangs out with his kids, and he composes music, and he is a full-time IT professional who also occasionally has to travel out of town. Ben is and somehow finds a way to be like hip about every single like cool restaurant and bar like in the New York City. He's on another level. But thank you so much for thank you so much to London, to Ben, to all of the many countless game masters in our Northern Reaches games, in our community games, folks like Boothby. Folks like Boothby have been just running a literal Pathfinder 2 campaign for our player group, or for a group of players, for what seems like probably now at least a year. It might even be longer. Whereas other people run just a bunch of one shots, mini campaigns. It's just such an incredible group of folks that I can't even necessarily list. Probably more people have run games, I feel like, than we have people who haven't run games. Boothby, a year and a half, right? So just that's just one small example of what we do here. So, okay. Okay. Lord is +2 Vorpal Salmon. Okay, Lord. I did not recognize Lord of the Aces as +2 Vorpal Salmon, but of course, +2 Vorpal Salmon is well known. Thank you. Well, thank you for being able to join us. So, but hey, listen, if Wednesday's your regular game day, so that's all right. Hopefully you can catch us Friday. GM Scott.
GM Scott tipped $50. I don't know what cinematic tactical agendas are, but I'm here for them. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, GM Scott. GM Scott, you know what? I don't know what they are either, to be honest with you. The more I hear about these MCDM, when they mention cinematic and tactical, I go, and I go heroic, and I go, I don't know what these words mean. Thank you, GM Scott, for your incredible support. I've had the opportunity to hang out with guys like GM Scott multiple times a year now because of this channel, because of being able to meet up at conventions. I'm really hoping that, once the holidays are over and people are back at work, that I'll be able to lock down and find a place that we can host NightCon 1 2024. I'm really, that is something that I really want to get done. I think even if I have to take a bath on the NightCon, like, I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm trying to lose thousands of dollars, but if if I can put NightCon together for $30,000 and I can, make $27,000 in entry fees or something like that, or whatever, something in that neighborhood, that I'll do it. If it means doing it the way that I want to do it, right? Which is to have the right spaces and to have the open areas for gaming and to have the merch and to have the swag. I'd really love to do that because I think this community deserves a chance to have that exposure and that time. And it's really because of experiences that I have had with folks like GM Scott, who have had the opportunity to sit down and play games with and share a beer with, and, just have these in bonding experiences that make this, a lot of people talk about content creators being parasocial relationships. And let me be clear about something. That is absolutely true. In that for a lot of community members, this is a one-way street, a relationship, right? Where the content creator is talking to this vast audience and the individual people feel like they are friends with this person, but the content creator does not know anything about you. They don't know who you are. They don't know, and they never will. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm going to meet every single person that is a member of my community. Of course not. But I will say I've met a lot of them. I've played games with a lot of them. I've met and hung out and, had beers with quite a few of them. So for me, it really is more about the community involvement than it is the channel, because quite frankly, the channel doesn't really make us, it's a vehicle to get us into this kind of space. So thank you very much for that, GM Scott. Jonka, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Jonka. Merry Christmas to you as well. Jackal says Northern Reaches season 3 hype. Yeah, I don't know if you read Smith's very long post about season 2, but without going too much into the details of it, we're going to do a bunch of surveys and we're going to talk about it. But I agree a lot with pretty much everything that Smith said. I think especially as we've gone, I learn, we go through the year. Sometimes what's interesting isn't fun. And I think a lot of what we did in season 2 was an attempt to make the game more interesting. And it maybe missed on some of the fun elements a little bit. And there was also, I'll be completely blunt about this, there was some over optimism in my, again, if you've ever watched me play RPGs, hopefully maybe some of you have, that I can be pretty, mean-spirited is the wrong word. I like to put people into uncomfortable situations, right? I like to put, even if it's like a fantasy game, I like to put people into these sort of, these Faustian deals where there doesn't seem to be any really good answer. I like to put the screws to people, and I like to see, I want to put people under pressure so that I can see how they really tick. And, as a result, there were certain things that we did in Northern Reaches season 2 that I would say ran into, expectation problems, and it ran into what, the spectrum of people, of some people who, look, I just came here to play Pathfinder 2, and then there's some people who said, I came here to play cutthroat TTRPG diplomacy. Those, two sides of the spectrum don't always align. So we have to figure out a way to sort. Now, I don't want to just, cut it down to the lowest common denominator. I don't think that's the right solution, but I do think we need to sort of, dial it back. Satir says there are rumors of a live play-by-post game that could happen during NightCon. Very excited to participate from afar if it happens. Yeah, I really hope that we can create a sort of virtual NightCon. Even if obviously not everybody's going to be able to make the trip out. But even if we could get a bunch of online community games running, maybe figure out a way, especially like for like our big mega games like New Dawn or Northern Reaches, to have things that are happening in live, in person, kind of go alongside with the things that are happening online. I think that'd be a lot of fun. The Quiet Year meetup at Gen Con was memorable. Keep trying to get my group to try it one night. Well, Trey, I hope you have the best of luck. And, the thing about it is like, obviously at something like Gen Con, like we're all just trying to meet up with everybody. And, there's a big group and I want everybody to be included. And there's sometimes there's spouses or, wives or husbands present who may or may not be gamers. So you're trying to juggle a lot of balls. But I will say, I thought that was just, for a group of people who had just, gotten together for a very brief moment and we just sort of bust out a game, like that is a good sign of the quality of gamer that we have, because that was a lot of fun. Merry Christmas to you, Gid. Thank you for the shout out on your little video. Appreciate it. I love, only you would apologize for being like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't make any videos. That's such a Gid thing.
Animasman tipped $5. Merry Christmas. Nice. What's the next game you're looking forward to learning/playing?
Ooh, that's a good question. Buddy, that's a great question. Thank you for that tip. So if we go, and this is just me, sort of sprouting, is just sort of waxing philosophically. Like there are a bunch of games that, like, for example, let's be clear here. So I have my core group. Okay. So these are my, this is Bob, this is Smith, right? These are my like sort of, base level of players. Doctor Who Christmas special with the kids on Christmas. Ben, hopefully you are not disappointed. I don't know. Are these Christmas specials usually good or bad? Hopefully you really, really enjoy it. And Ben, let me know about this week. Get back to me. And if we have to change or do something different, Ben, maybe we can make something happen on this game time schedule. I'd love to get you on the channel again. Thanks, Ben. Jackal, well, I am in the Daggerheart playtest, so there is that. I got my acceptance letter for that. So I will be, I don't know what the time frame is for that, but I will be in the Daggerheart playtest. Okay, so my core group of like Bob and Smith and Aaron and stuff like that, they are very interested in, and again, you have to understand that there's sort of two kind of ideas here. There's the first idea is an AP for the channel, right? And the second is our home game. So not everything that I am saying here is necessary. It might be for one or it might be for the other, right? So my core group of players, right? They, especially Aaron, are very interested in playing some 4E D&D. As sort of a game experience that they want to play. They're also very interested in playing Fabula Ultima. And this is definitely a game that I know that a lot of patrons, a lot of viewers have been really, really interested in seeing us play as well. So those are sort of like the main things that kind of stick out from them. I was like reading here. Yes, the MCDM playtest is available tomorrow. I mentioned that. I'll be downloading it. I don't know. I'm supposed to be playing Dragonbane tomorrow and learning that system with Bob, and then I have a stream in the evening. So I don't know how much time I'm going to have, but I'm eager to look forward to it. I mean, We'll probably talk about it on the stream. Pumpkin's also in the Daggerheart playtest. Yeah, I think it doesn't sound like it was super exclusive to get into the playtest, honestly. Kalamaka, sorry if this is obvious to everyone else, but I only know you from this channel. So the way to watch and or participate in your games is through Patreon. Yes. I mean, when you say my games, I do run games occasionally, but those are typically for patrons who have been with us for a long time, because I can't just play them with everybody. But all of the group community games that we're talking about happen through our Knights of Last Call community, which is through our Discord, which is through our Patreon. So our Discord is not public. It is private. You have to be a member of the Knights of Last Call Patreon to be a part of those community games at any tier. At any tier. We've got a $3 level, a $5 level, $10 level, and so on and so forth, and up above that. But that's kind of the way it goes. I do not think I haven't checked, but I don't think I did. Jackal Torn Moons. Oh, you mean you in the plural? Yes. Yes. If Bob runs games occasionally, I run games. All these other folks here in the community run a ton of games, and it's all done through the Patreon. Yes. Janka says, pitching in to see your thoughts on Candela. Doesn't seem to have a great reception so far, even from its target audience. Haven't looked at it myself. Yeah, so I saw that there was I was surprised, trust but verify. I saw that there was a lot of negative reviews coming out. And my first thought was, these people are all just trying to get clout by shitting on something from Critical Role. I could also see a world where the core Critical Role audience feels like betrayed by, like, again, my understanding, I don't know the game super well, which is why I would have to take a look at it. But it's based off of Blades in the Dark. And I could see that the sort of core critters could almost feel betrayed by Candela Obscura if its mechanics are anything like Blades in the Dark, because to them, what an RPG is basically what D&D plus Critical Role is. And so to show them something that is different, they could feel like, it's like when your favorite band, comes up with their first album and it's amazing, and they come up with their second album and it really feels like a follow-up to that first album. And then they come out with a third album and it's a stylistic difference. It's the same band members playing the same instruments, but they're exploring different aspects of their musicality. They're, trying different genres or influences. And a lot of the so-called hardcore fans can feel like upset. It might be an amazing album. In fact, like it might be the album that goes and wins a Grammy, but its core base feels like, what the hell? You abandon us. So I'm just speculating here. But it remains to be seen. I'll have to take a look at it. That is kind of my guess. So thank you, Janka. Man, it looks like we're well on our way to getting there. What is shaking? Nutmeg Nog? Not much. We're just hanging out. I was talking about what games that people, what games? Oh, so like Weezer's second album. Are we referencing Paramore's recent album here? Here's the problem with Paramore. Okay. The problem with Paramore is, okay. So All We Know Is Falling comes out, right? Their debut album, and it's great. It's great. And then Riot comes out and it's like outstanding. Okay. Then Brand New Eyes comes out, and I think for me, here's the thing. It doesn't have my favorite songs on the album, but I will fully agree that it's like the absolute pinnacle of Paramore. But a lot of people started to feel like it was different. Then you had the self-titled album. And when the self-titled album came out, obviously the Farrow brothers had left the band. And so a lot of people thought like, oh, this is no longer Paramore. But this is the album that had so many of their like biggest hits, because they were kind of free from the sort of shackles of the things that were holding them back before. And initially, I did not like this album that much. But over time, I actually have come to really, really love it. And the best example of this is their 5th album, which is After Laughter. When that first came out, I absolutely hated it. And then it became, again, a fantastic album, one that I will happily listen to. Now, I don't like all the songs. I will fully admit that. But some of the ones on here are just complete and bangers. And then we're at This Is Why. But the problem is, each of these albums has been sort of like goes down, but then it comes up. Goes down and then comes up. But now we're like, this thing is like literally in the basement. And I don't know if as time goes on, I am going to, go up in my approximation of it. But I feel like I'm not. And even if I do, I feel like the best thing that I could possibly hope for is it's okay. It's not bad. So anyways, all right. That was me talking about Paramore really quick. Case in point, I had bought tickets to their summer tour this summer. I bought them last year in my hometown. And then I saw all the set lists for their shows and I didn't go. I think I streamed instead. Anyways, the CR/band analogy resonates well with my experience. Critical Role Season 1 was great. Critical Season 2 was pretty good. Critical Role Season 3 is not for me. Yeah, because you're struck, right? You want to give your audience something different, but you're also afraid to change too much because then you're afraid you're going to lose out on your audience members. All right. So then there's the games that are more of like, I'm going to say that I'm interested in, but I don't know about like how or where they're going to get played.
Animazman tipped $1. Thanks for all the awesome TTRPG content, by the way. Also, my chats aren't showing up, and I'm not too sure why. D?
Well, that showed up. I don't know why your chats aren't showing up. Let me take a look. Thank you for the tip. Let's see here. Let me just see that you're not like auto banned or something. All right. Try that. I don't know why you had gotten on a ban list. I don't know. Maybe you said something that the chat moderator thought was bad, and it the auto moderator, the YouTube moderator. But I took you off of it, so hopefully that should work, buddy. Yay, you're back. All right. So anyways, so I'm interested in Forbidden Lands because I love this kind of what I will call it's kind of a new OSR feel, right? It's got this gamist plus emulationist vibe. I really, really want to try it out. But I don't know if it's the game that I want to play for, forever, for a long time. I'm also still really interested in playing Avatar Legends. I think that I love Avatar. I love the world of Avatar. I'm more excited now than ever. They've got the live action movie coming out, or a live action show coming out that looks good. So I really think that this game has a lot of potential. I love the Powered by the Apocalypse engine, but what Magpie did with Avatar Legends is so interesting to me. And just in my brief handful of times of playing this game, including with people who had never played Powered by the Apocalypse games before, who had never played Avatar Legends before, some of them had never played a Powered by the Apocalypse game before, with at a one shot, we were able the system just created these incredible, amazing story beats and these absolutely fun stories. And it did so without the hurdles, right? It did so, the system helped me tell the story. In fact, I would say I was like helping the system in the sense that like the system was doing all the work. I was just hanging along for the ride, right? And guiding it a little bit. The system was doing the heavy lifting. And that is so compelling to me. And I just feel like the world of Avatar, the themes, the tones, especially because so many people are familiar with it, is really, really fun because I think it's easier for people to just get what the game is about. It's not about leveling up and getting gold and getting better magical items. It's about helping the people, helping the world. It's about discovering yourself. It's about finding balance in the world. It's about finding balance within your social or family groups. It's about finding balance within yourself. And that is a very interesting journey that I think it appeals to me as a person. I think in a way I think we all are, but I think for me, especially the last couple of years have really been a journey of balance. It's been these two competing principles that I've been torn between. I mean, you kind of see that here on this channel, right? Where, I'm a competitive person, right? I want to compete. I want to beat these other channels. I want to be the best, right? I want to have the most views and the most subs. Like, of course I do. Like, I'm a competitive person. I used to play fun board games and fun card games and fun video games, but I played them competitively. I played them for money. I paid them for entry fees and prizes. I'm a competitive person. So I want to win, but I also want to be true to myself and I want to sort of show what I care about. And so I think that is where I think the game really, really speaks to me. Pumpkin says, Avatar Legends is great. It's actually one of the last things that I got to play with our late friend, Jose. I don't think the power of the Knights of the Last Call community to me has never been made more clearly apparent than when we lost a member of our community earlier this year. And just to see the impact that it had on me and Bob and Aaron, let alone the wider community, people who really had spent a lot of time playing with this gentleman. And to see that kind of gave me this understanding that, okay, this isn't just some parasocial relationship. Like, these are real people that that we really care about. And, it was an absolutely and completely tragic loss. And it's one that I think that, will be with our community for a long time. But it's one of those things where you can only be happy and positive about the amazing and great times that you had. So certainly the darkest part for me of this year regarding this channel. I'm glad that you had a great time with Jose before he packed up his dice and packed up his pencil and had turned in his character sheet and went off to the next game. Owen says, I got my copy of Root Rulebook today, thanks to this channel. I'm going to go try out my non-D20 systems. Respect. Merry Christmas. Well, look, and here's the thing. I'm not promising you, Owen, that your group is going to love it. I'm not even promising that you are going to love it. But I think that if you're willing to give it a chance and you're willing to learn from it, even if it turns out not to be the game that you and your group want to play, my advice is learn from it, adapt from it, grow from it, right? Risk, the corporate, not the corporate, but like the motto of Progressive Insurance, where we used to work, was risk, learn, grow. And I really like that. I think that should apply to role-playing games as well. Put yourself out there, take a chance, take a risk, learn from it, and then grow. I'm really interested in Forbidden Lands, Avatar Legends. I still want to get a 2D20 game. I've dabbled. I got to be a player for a handful of sessions in Star Trek Adventures. I've got two players, Kaz and Smith, who are just diehard Star Trek nerds. But I also really, we got the new Dune movie coming out, and the Dune 2D20 game looks amazing. I love the world and the politics and the sort of the essential nature of Dune as well. So, but then we've also got all this new shit coming out this year, right? We've got the MCDM. We've got the Daggerheart. I forgot a G there, but you know what I'm saying. We got the Daggerheart. We've got the DC-20. We've got the 6th edition, right? We've got PF 2.1519 repeating, right? So, there's just a lot of revisions to existing games that, obviously I think as a community, as an individual, I'm interested in. But we've also got a lot of these other new games that are coming out. What's the one? Something Tales of the Valiant. Is that what it's called? Legacy of the Valiant. Something like that. So like there are just so many different new games that as a community, as a channel, I think people are going to be interested in thinking they are going to be interested in these games, and they are going to want, I think, us to take a look at them and play them. Now, part of the problem with all of this, and we're just going wherever we go here, is, look, I'm a GM just like you are, and I have to deal with a lot of different competing interests, and my players are not always exactly the same. Someone like Bob wants to play as many games, right, as possible. So Bob doesn't care. In Bob's ideal world, he would just play like a one shot of system A, one shot of system B, one shot of system C, one shot of system D. Bob just wants to play as many games as possible. Smith, on the other hand, wants a year plus long, 50 plus session game. So this is tough because these are very different from one another. And quite frankly, I am definitely not this. Okay. And I am definitely not this either. At the same time, for the channel, okay, what we have discovered is that, for me personally, while I think one shots are fine, by and large, I think one shots, and this is like for the channel. I don't think one shots, I feel, do not give proper, we'll say, exposure to the game. Part of the reason that we do our actual plays on this channel is not just to make an entertaining product that everybody else can go and play or watch, which is fine if you enjoy it. But a lot of it is just, I want people to see how the game system actually plays, like the mechanics, the systems of it, And I think when you play a one shot, me, the game master, my players, even you, the audience, even the session doesn't have enough time to get through all of the mechanics of the game that I really want to show off. We played Root for 11 sessions, and and we didn't get to every system. Forget every mechanic. Like I'm talking about, there were entire systems in this game that we missed out on because we didn't get a chance to get to them in 10 sessions. So one shots don't really allow me to show people what the game looks like. Now, on the other hand, the long haul campaigns, we know that from experience that audience interest really, really starts to, as time goes on, audience interest quickly goes down. And as a result, by the time we get to episode 4 or 5 or 6, the audience has shrunk pretty considerably. And, there's a financial component to all of this. Not to mention, we are creating this game to show people how the game is played. Well, after 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 sessions, I like to think that, sure, we may not have gotten to everything that the game has, but we've pretty much explored the space. And so to do another 10 sessions, 20 sessions, 40 sessions of just one game, I think is asking a lot of you as an audience member. I mean, it's my understanding that Critical Role will lose half of their audience over the course of one of their campaigns. And these people are way, way more entertaining and better at these games than we are, right? At least in terms of like selling it as an entertainment product. And so if they can't keep 50% of their audience for the entire go of it, what chance in hell do I, Bob, and me, Bob, and Smith have? None. So I also don't want to just be sitting there, streaming for 5 people. So that's one of the challenges as well. And to be quite frank, anybody, maybe you're just you're thinking about doing it yourself. Go online. Actual plays they're not it. Critical Role, Dimension 20, obviously, Glass Cannon. These people have figured it out. They got lucky. They had the right talent. They had everything that they needed to make, to strike while it was hot, to strike while the iron was hot. There are some groups out there that are producing beautiful actual plays, and they are getting nowhere, and they are getting nothing. And the reason is because it is an extremely tough racket to get into. So even though that's where we started, Dr. Waits, thank you for the super chat. We'll get to you in a second. So long story short, I know that Aaron is interested in 4E D&D. I know that Bob has read Forbidden Lands. We've played a session 0 of Fabula Ultima. And so these are all games that I think fundamentally as a group, and you know what, Aaron and Bob had a chance to play Avatar Legends with me, and they really, really liked that game. But, Bob is like thinking, well, I already played Avatar Legends once. So what's the value in me playing it again when I could be playing a new game? And Aaron, quite realistically, is like, well, Powered by the Apocalypse games are not really great for running 50 session campaigns, right? They're really good for maybe running 15 to 20 session games at most. So, are we really, if we play an Avatar Legends, that is definitely not going to be a 50 plus session long game. So I'm kind of not as interested in that. So this is where like the dilemma is as we think about, what games that we want to play this year. But I think fundamentally, as I think about what games I have on my shelf, these are the ones that have always sort of stuck out, that are kind of currently, they've been at the top, the top of my reading stack. Right now on my nightstand, I have a copy of Avatar Legends and the Forbidden Lands book, and the 4E D&D Rules Compendium. So those are like some of the games that I've been really looking at. Let's see here. Let's see here. Jonka says, I am Bob. Wine tasting, but for games. Lord High Summoner wants both. So does Pumpkin. I want to play as many games as possible and a 50 plus session game. Gid, on the other hand, is Smith. His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson. Tim says, it's hard to beat 4E. It's my favorite D&D. Is it my favorite D&D? I mean, it's between 4th edition or 3rd edition D&D. It's tough. Actually, when we get into like tonight's tactical versus creative agenda in combat, we'll actually talk about 4E D&D and why it occasionally made me break down and into frustration. Do you feel like there's any Rules Lights games that weren't doing more than just a one shot? I mean, it depends on what you mean by Rules Light game. If you mean like Lasers and Feelings or Honey Heist, no. But again, it depends. It depends what you want to means. Lance, who of course is one of my players, not on the channel, but in our home game, has gone through a lot of session zeros. Let's just put it that way. Because we keep, trying stuff on. And then we go, look at this new shiny game, Yeah, 6 sessions minimum. I like that number. Pumpkin, I like 6 sessions. Gurney says, I thought I wanted the 50+ session campaign, and then I learned that my sweet spot is about 10 sessions and then decide to keep going or switch to something else. I think that's probably, honestly, the best possible. That's the best way to do it. Set up your campaign in such a way that it is a 10-session campaign with a defined beginning, middle, and end. But it's set up in such a way that if the group is really excited and they want to keep playing, then there's plenty of runway to keep the game going for another, maybe another 10 or 15 sessions. But then but the nice advantage of that is the problem with like going, we're going to play a 50+ session campaign. Then you get 2-3 months into it. You've played 8 or 9 sessions and everybody's kind of starting to lose interest. The game fizzles out and it dies. The problem there is you're left feeling very unsatisfied because it really does feel like you just stopped in the middle and you didn't get to actually have that closure. So I think even if you're going to play a 50+ session game, I think you really need to think about it in terms of like creating this defined segment of we did it, we beat it, and we got it. And this is going to go off on a side tangent here. But let me. I don't want to lose Dr. Waits' question. Dr. Waits for $5 says, any advice for picking up momentum in my adventure path after 2 months of erratic playing? I'd love to get further in an adventure path than book 2. Well, Dr. Waits, I have a couple of suggestions. The one is if the erratic playing is occurring, sometimes what happens is people feel like they're not progressing very fast because maybe erratic playing has come in, and maybe it's no one's fault, it's just bad schedules. I don't think that you should feel bad, and I think you should totally feel fine to say, hey, we've been kind of stalled out for the last couple of months because we really haven't played much. So here's what we're going to do. Everybody level up your characters to level 5 or 6. All right. I'm going to summarize some stuff. We'll cover a couple things. Maybe I'll ask you a couple of questions. You give me some answers. We can do this offline in a group chat or a Discord or an email thread. And I'm basically going to sort of push the fast forward button. Let's skip past wherever we're at and let's get to the next part. And maybe we can just quickly summarize what happened and let's just keep the momentum going. Let's rebuild the momentum, because part of the time, I think part of the problem when you don't play for a while, it can feel like you've been spinning your wheels for a long time. And it's hard to sort of, figure out what we were doing or where we were going. I don't think you should feel badly about skipping parts of an adventure path and just maybe going to the next chapter in an existing adventure, or sometimes skipping an adventure entirely. I think that is totally acceptable. Evening to you, Matt. Merry Christmas to you as well. Jackal says, the main things I discovered this year is that I need more 13th Age and more Fabula in my life. Yeah, 13th Age and Fabula Ultima for me, in terms of a community impact, has definitely been like the 2 largest things that have kind of come out of the Knights of Last Call community this year. A lot of 13th Age campaigns being played, talking about being played, have started already, and people really finding that it is a fantastic way to sort of bridge between your traditional D20 fantasy and maybe some of these more narrative or abstract concepts, or just anything that isn't D&D, basically. And then Fabula Ultima is just awesome. GM Scott, Bob wants to play every system. Aaron wants to play a long campaign with a single system. I want to buy a bunch of systems to read, but not read all of them, and then don't run any of them either. Yes, that is the third path, which unfortunately, GM Scott, is what I have been doing for the last couple of months. Because, other than playing our Pathfinder 2 game, which was wrapping up, we've had a hard time landing on something and launching it. But yeah, I think that's true for a lot of us. Hey, Topinski enjoyed the Root campaign, so you were the one. Let's see here. Let's see. And that is how you end up with strength of thousands. Let's see here. So what I was going to say about pacing, and I've talked about this before, but I think that this is the beauty of the old school D&D model. Okay, so let's take a look at 3rd edition D&D. When 3rd edition D&D released, they released a series of adventures, 7 adventures over the first 7 months that it was out. So you had Sunless Citadel, you had Forge of Fury, you had Speaker in Dreams, you had Standing Stone, you had the Heart of Nightfang Spire, and Spire. You had Deep Horizon. I can't believe I know all these. You had Lord of the Iron Fortress, and then lastly, you had Bastion of Broken Souls. Okay, now here's the deal. The level, these weren't 6 level adventures. Sunless Citadel was 1 to 3. Forge of Fury was 3 to 5. Speaker in Dreams was 5 to 7. Standing Stone was 7 to 10. Heart of Nightfang Spire was 10 to 13. Deep Horizon was 13 to 15. Lord of Iron Fortress was 15 to 17. And Bastion of Broken Souls was 17 to 20. But here's the thing. Callimachus, this was 3rd edition, not 3.5. This was 3rd edition. And my good friend and heterosexual life mate, Rich, saying Heart, because Rich had an opportunity to play most of these adventures with me back in the day. But here's the deal. Sunless Citadel was a dungeon. I'll call it a basic dungeon. Forge of Fury was a little bit more of an advanced dungeon. Speaker in Dreams was sort of a city adventure. Standing Stone was sort of more of a mystery or an adventure. Sort of a mystery or an what's the word? Investigation. Heart of Nightfang Spire was a dungeon. Deep Horizon was a sort of an overland adventure. Lord of Iron Fortress was sort of a plane hopping. And Bastion of Broken Souls was sort of like plane hopping and, big boss battles. So, each adventure kind of felt a little bit different. But here's the thing that's most critical about all this. This is not an adventure path. Sunless Citadel did not lead into Forge of Fury, did not lead into Speaker of Dreams, did not lead into Standing Stone. Okay. There were occasionally little Easter eggs where they might mention something, they there's a weird plaque of an ancient dragon in Sunless Citadel. And in Bastion of Broken Souls, you fight that dragon. But it has nothing to do, it doesn't even remotely matter. But the key thing here is, let's say you started playing this and your group goes through the Sunless Citadel and they have a great time and they fight the goblins and they fight the kobolds and they go into the depths of the Sunless Citadel and they discover the Twilight Grove, okay, and they fight the evil, crazy druid and they destroy the corrupted, cursed tree. That is, congratulations, that's a win. You did the thing. You are heroes. And it's not and the druid doesn't die and he's got a letter that says, I am but a harbinger of further things to come, right? No, you won. That threat is eliminated. You did the damn thing. Okay. And so then when the second adventure starts up with its own set of hooks about this ancient dwarven, lost dwarven stronghold said to have possessed the great secrets of the dwarven forge masters, which had been overrun by orcs and dragons and undead. When the group goes there, it's its own set of hooks, it's its own set of motivations. And the group goes into Forge of Fury and they explore the Glitterhame and they go down in the sinkhole and they find their way to the very bottom to the Black Lake and they defeat Nightscale and they claim Durandal, the dwarven weapon of vengeance. And it's a great victory and it's an awesome achievement. And then let's say your campaign ends, as many do. And you know what? You never make it to Speaker in Dreams or Standing Stone or Hardening Fang Spire or any of these really great adventures. When you're playing something like Rise of the Rune Lords or an adventure path, the group is going to feel like, so we didn't do anything, right? It's like we started watching a TV show and then we just stopped watching it. And it's almost like the quality or value of those early adventures was kind of meaningless because those were just setting us up for the bigger thing to come. But in this model, which is not a 3rd edition model, by the way, this is just the D&D model that existed before Paizo basically created the adventure path. And why did Paizo create the adventure path? Simple, in my personal opinion. To sell adventures. Paizo had Dungeon Magazine. They started printing these adventure paths because the idea was if you started playing Adventure 1 of the adventure path, then you were going to have to buy Adventure 2 and Adventure 3 and Adventure 4 and Adventure 5 and Adventure 6 and Adventure 7 if you wanted to do the whole story. So buying one adventure priced you in for buying the next 6 or 7. But the problem there is by doing that, you have gotten rid of the individual adventure and you've essentially turned it into one big, huge, tremendous, long adventure. And so the group, while they theoretically reach the end of the book or end of the adventure, it almost never or very rarely ever feels like a real legitimate victory. Whereas these modules, which are standalone, means that as long as your group gets to the end of Forge of Fury, or maybe you play another couple of months and you make it to the end of Speaker in Dreams or Standing Stone, and then your campaign ends, as again, so many do, the group doesn't feel like, yeah, we never did get to the end. We never did beat all the things. It's like, they wouldn't even have the idea that there was a greater story to do because there wasn't. They did defeat the Sunless Citadel, right? They did defeat the threat of the Forge of Fury. They did uncover the secret of the Speaker in Dreams and unlock the mystery of the Standing Stone. And that was the tale of those heroes. That's it. Story over. That's fine. And you know what? That's fine because it was a complete story. I think that that is a model of play which seems very foreign to us these days. And I think that that is unfortunate because I think that is where it's, I think about Bob when I think about this stuff because, when we played Rise of the Rune Lords and, the campaign ended early, Bob was very much like, oh, but I want to know what happens. I feel like I feel like a failure. Like I have all this FOMO because we didn't get to complete the game. We didn't complete the thing. It's like the fact that they played through the first 3 adventures of the Rise of the Rune Lords meant nothing unless if you didn't beat the final boss. But it doesn't have to be that way, So anyways, I think that is something that has changed a lot in the game for sure. Queen's Anne says, I tried a couple of demos of 13th Age, and I actually think I was too much like 4th edition. Well, one of the 4th edition designers did create 13th Age. Plus, the meta rule of the escalation die actually turned me off. Yes, the escalation die is very gamist. It's very meta. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Merry Christmas to you, Thunder Mammoth. Glad to see you. All right. So, again, if you have a comment or thought or comment or question, let me know. So let's talk. Let's see here. Well, before I go on, Ayla says, So you are proposing the idea of having several points of closure, so that if the campaign doesn't go on for another 15 to 20 sessions, it doesn't feel like the ball was just suddenly dropped. I don't hate it. That is exactly what I am talking about. I am really talking about here is episodic campaigns, right? We are used to modern day television in the era, since, I don't know, The Sopranos, or whatever, has basically been that TV shows are these evolving storylines. They're almost more like, honestly, they're like soap operas, right? And as a result, people got really sucked in, and it was really great for getting people to stay tuned in. And hey, Rick, thank you so much for the tip.
Rick S. tipped $15. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, Rick. Hope you're enjoying your holiday over there in the Southwest. It might be warmer here. I don't know. It's like 61 degrees here today in Ohio. Thank you so much, Rick, for your support. And we love having you be a part of this community. And thank you for your amazing support. And for being one of the game masters I was talking about earlier in the day, who just does a tremendous job of keeping our community vibrant. I mean, there can't be too many small, as communities as small as we have, to have it this many people playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but also playing Traveler, and also playing Fabula Ultima, and also playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st Edition, and also playing, you know what I mean? Like, to have like that many different types of games, and six more different types of games that are happening. 4th Edition games, random indie one-shots, Avatar Legends. I mean, like Blades in the Dark. Like, there's just so many different games that are going on, and I love it. So thanks to people like Rick. But yeah, so in the era before, Deep Space Nine, Star Trek was episodic. The characters progressed. It was still Picard and Data. It was still Kirk and Spock and McCoy, but each week's episode was its own thing, right? It was its own thing. And that, I think, is something that, quite frankly, D&D benefits from, because you never know when you're going to get canceled, right? So like, if you want to think of it like a TV show, like everybody thinks like, oh, right. Oh man, I'm going to have 5 seasons and a movie to tell my complete story. And then you get canceled after season 2, you don't get renewed. And then a lot of people look at your show as a failure because you set up all this grand ideas and these incredible character arcs that just never paid off because you just ran out of time. The show ended before you could pay off. And so your audience feels disappointed, let down, betrayed. And that is, I think, a problem. So when you look at episodic television, like, again, like early episodic television, like early Star Trek, then that, I think, is where you get that kind of style of play. Damien, with his 19-month adventurer super chat or a member chat. Star Trek Adventures, comics, and the Essence 20 games like G.I. Joe are built perfectly for episodic storylines. They're the mission-based or comics arc natures. Right. Comic-based games, and I guess Star Trek Adventures, any sort of mission-based game is innately going to be, I don't know Essence 20 in the G.I. Joe system, but it makes total sense that it would be designed for sort of that episodic storyline. Now, it wouldn't be Merry Christmas without, of course, saying a good rip to Firefly. What's interesting about Firefly was episodic, okay? That doesn't mean that there wasn't a sense of the world progressing. But the thing about Firefly was, while the episodes more or less felt episodic, the character arcs were more detailed, right? There was this idea of this character growth. There was this idea of this character going on a journey. And to certain elements, we saw that in Star Trek The Next Generation as well, right? Like, Data's quest for humanity, Worf's, a lot of stuff with Worf, but like Worf's sense of honor and Worf's family history, right? Like Picard coming to grips with like the Borg, right? So there's this idea of this arc that follows the character, but it doesn't really follow the show, right? It doesn't follow the the actual narrative. It follows the character. And so I think that can work a lot better in tabletop role-playing games as well. In Toss or Tinge, if an episode ended with to be continued, it was a big thing. Right. Like, I mean, some of those season cliffhangers were like the biggest thing ever. Best of both worlds, unification. Well, the one from season 6 with the Borg again was not as good. I can't remember what that one was called. But like that was always a big thing. So a 2-parter was like a huge deal. I mean, if you even look at the last episode of most Star Trek: The Next Generation, if you look at the last episode of Next Generation, last episode of Deep Space Nine, last episode of Voyager, it kind of just goes like, it kind of just ends like it was kind of like any other Tuesday, because in a sense it is like, obviously in Voyager, they got home, but like in Star Trek: The Next Generation, the show ends, but like the idea, I mean, I don't know, next week they're probably, they're on some other crazy mission, right? With some crazy star system, right? Like the journey continues after the show has ended. One reason I love Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks is because they're a return to episodic Star Trek. Now listen, I love Deep Space Nine. Absolutely. I love Deep Space Nine. And even Deep Space Nine became less, Deep Space Nine started off much more episodic. And then once the Dominion War stuff started, it became much more, sort of plot arc driven, but I only love it because it finished, right? Like if Deep Space Nine had just ended and we never found out what happened with the Dominion War, and we never found out what happened with the Founders or Odo or the Cardassia, but it would have been frustrating as hell. It's very trust. Dharmak and Jalad at Tanagra. The ending to Stargate SG-1 was the most disappointing thing ever. Did you see the ending to Stargate Universe? Because that might be the most disappointing thing ever. Because the show got canceled and we never found out what happened. So anyways, yes, the fully serialized shows like Discovery and Picard are the drizzling shits. And I think most people would agree with you. And I agree that the serialized television is just not a great look. Armored Anathema says, I'm planning on doing more mission-based episodic sessions if I ever get the Valor game I'm running. It's basically a cooking game show plus fighting tournament, okay, based on a one-shot. All right. Well, I don't know the Valor game, and I don't know much about cooking game shows and fighting tournaments, but that sounds interesting. So, let's see here. Babylonia 5. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're saying Babylon 5 sort of introduced the idea of the serialized show, and Deep Space Nine copied it. I could buy that. And again, listen, there's nothing wrong with if I know the future and I know that my campaign is most definitely going to last for 75 episodes, 75 sessions. But you don't know that. You never do know that. What are the chances that we can get a 7th Sea deep dive? 0, because I do not know 7th Sea that well. Deep dive. I won't do a deep dive on something unless I really know the game that well. And I've GM'd it a bunch and I've played it a bunch. And I've had a chance to, not just run a one shot for it. 7th Sea, I have never run. I've played in one game once. I've read through the rule book. So I'm really actually not that much of an expert on 7th Sea. I think it's interesting. I think there's ideas in there that are really compelling. But I do not, it's not one of the games that is currently, in the grand myths of everything that is behind me, plus the new games that I've just added this year alone. It's not one of the ones that has really sort of bubbled to the top, even though I think it's totally acceptable. Let's see. Tragic. Well, we can't play them all, which again isn't. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's great. The end of TNG wasn't about the end of the story. It was a transitional period of the TNG crew themselves as a culmination of their personal journeys, which was a natural way to end it. And I agree, particularly for Picard, right? The realization that this crew was his family. And, that was, for him, that was his big arc, basically. Seventh Sea breaks my brain. Okay. Did we end up playing Forbidden Lands? I don't remember. Not yet. So Bob actually read the Forbidden Lands. He read Dragonbane and he read Forbidden Lands. According to Bob, he finds that he can actually read. Again, Bob does not, he'll be the first to admit he doesn't really read that well, partial dyslexia. So most of the time, Bob voraciously consumes written content via audiobooks. But he will say he has been able to read the Free League books very easily. For some reason, he can sit down with a Free League book like Symbaroum or I was going to call it DuckTales, Dragonbane, or Forbidden Lands, and he can actually read them. So Bob went ahead and read Forbidden Lands because I told Smith and Bob that I thought this game was really interesting. I thought it had some interesting and compelling mechanics. And, one of the things that I'm always trying to do with this channel, with my own group, is expose them to different types of ideas, different types of mechanics, just so that we could be a more well-rounded play group. So I thought there was a lot of potential there. So we have talked about doing some sort of mini Forbidden Lands campaign. So we have not played it yet, but that's also because, again, the last month and a half has just been absolutely horrendous with the holidays, and Smith and I work for the same company, and our company's going through a transitional period, and Smith has been super, super, super busy trying to get ready for that. So we haven't had the chance to do it. Okay. Let us, unless anybody else has any other questions. So let's talk, and again, this is more philosophical here, but let's talk tactical versus creative agendas in combat. So what the hell does that even mean? And what is this talking about? And I want to bring you through where I think, and again, I'm not saying that there's a right way or a wrong way to do this. Okay. But let's imagine that. So when we think about combat, right, it's usually a high stakes, winner take all, do or die situation. And when people talk about a tactical game, and this may vary from person to person, but I usually, in my mind, imagine them being, what they're really saying is the game gives my character, right, or my PC, certain abilities, and presumably these abilities have been granted to your PC. You've chosen them. You've looked up different spells or feats or abilities or options, right? Even if your game is completely diegetic and you don't have level-based progression at all, the fact of the matter is you have still sort of gone out of your way to give your character a fire staff, and now your character can do fire damage with your fire staff. So the game has given your character certain abilities, and the sort of the goal or the challenge or the puzzle of the combat is how to use those abilities to win. Now, so what are we really talking about here? I mean, we're talking about pretty much any board game, okay? When you play Magic the Gathering or you play chess, okay, the game gives you a certain number of things that you can do. And the goal or the puzzle or the fun or the challenge of the game is to make tactical decisions to use those abilities to the best of your ability to secure yourself victory, right? If I have a spell in Magic the Gathering that does 3 points of damage and my opponent is at 3 life, I can shoot them with that and kill them. Right? And then I've won the game. Hooray, I've won. Okay? Now, this means that as a player, we understand that our ability to win or lose this combat or this challenge or this puzzle or this game, if you think about it, combat in most fantasy role-playing games, most role-playing games in general, combat really is just, it's a mini game, right? It's just a game that you, it's like a game within a game. And as such, there is a understanding that when you go into that game, you are going to be applying the rules and abilities that you know are true to try to overcome and win against your opponent. That means that the choices, the player agency that you are making is based off of the idea that, you know, sometimes your abilities don't do what you want them to do. Okay. So I'll just give you a good example here. If we were playing Magic the Gathering, okay, you might have a spell called, you know, Firebolt, and it deals 3 damage to a creature. Okay, but it doesn't do the damage to the player. Okay? It doesn't do any damage to the player. It just does the damage to a creature. Now, in Magic, that means that if your opponent was at 3 life and you had a Firebolt in your hand, you couldn't use it to kill them. Okay? The rules are quite clear. A creature is a, you know, like an elf, an ogre, a vampire that's in the game. Firebolt can kill one of those, but it cannot kill or it cannot target the actual opponent. And so even if our opponent was at 3 life, we could not use Firebolt to kill them. The tactical challenge of Magic the Gathering is that these cards and these abilities, the things that you deliberately put into your deck, or if you were playing another board game, you know, the things and abilities that you have in that game restrict what you can and can't do. That is what the rules are for. And to be clear, the challenge and the fun and the whole point of even bothering to learn and study and focus and care about this game comes because you want to use these abilities better than your opponent. So a tactical agenda is very, very compelling. But TTRPGs have a problem. I'm going to call it a problem, which is, for whatever reason, again, we've talked about this. Now, right, you cry and you wish you had a lightning bolt instead. I didn't specifically mention this, but in yes, that's absolutely right. In Magic the Gathering, there is a spell called Lightning Bolt, and Lightning Bolt does 3 damage to any target. Okay, so a lightning bolt could just kill your opponent straight up, but Firebolt cannot. Okay, so here's the problem. For whatever reason, TTRPGs have this idea of rule 0, or somehow that the rules don't matter, or that we should just do whatever we want to do and anything is cool and we should just go with it. And again, this is going to be kind of difficult for me to explain it properly, so I'm going to try my best. So if we were playing a creative game, so that's number one, right? TTRPGs, more so than any other game, okay, even collaborative games. There are plenty of board games out there that are collaborative. There's no, it's not opposition. It's me and my friends, and we're all playing together, right? To sort of, you know, beat the board, beat the game, beat the pandemic, right? So it's a collaborative game. But I have played those collaborative games. At no point when I am playing a collaborative game does anybody ever go like, somebody does something and it's not really useful or powerful, and we go, it would be actually a lot better if we just changed the rules and we just made it so that their thing always worked and the deck of cards that we're playing against can't win. And everyone goes, yeah, that sounds really cool too. You don't do that, because if you do that, you're making the whole exercise of going through this game pointless. You're making the tactical challenge of the game pointless. And the game is giving you a ton of tactical choices. Which feat to take, which, if you're playing Pandemic Legacy, which researcher to take, which city to go to. If every time the rules don't cooperate with you, if you just rule 0 so that you come up with the easy solution, now you could do that. That's fine. But you have abandoned the tactical agenda. The tactical agenda essentially is you got to work with what you got. So number one is we have this idea of this rule 0, which permeates TTRPGs, which is unique to TTRPGs. The second is desperation. Now, I have seen this more often than not. Look, when death is on the line, when failure is on the line, players will tend to they'll start grasping at straws, right? They will start trying to poke a hole into any sort of defense because they want to win, or maybe they don't want to lose. And it might not even be that, it might not even be like, oh, they're just selfish and they want to win. No, they want to save the kingdom from the ravages of the great evil demon dragon. And they're looking at their character sheet and they're looking at the condition of the combat, and they are putting 1 and 1 together, and they are realizing, I can no longer beat this combat tactically. Okay. The dice rolls have gone against us, or we made really poor decisions with our characters or with our builds. Long story short, we're going to lose. But I don't want to lose. So when the rules don't work for me, that's when I start choosing to start getting creative. And I start coming up with sort of excuses for why something should work differently than it should. So going back to our Magic the Gathering example, if this was a tabletop role-playing game and the big, bad, evil wizard was about to kill you, and the big, bad, evil wizard was at 3 hit points, and one of the characters has a firebolt, which cannot damage the wizard. It can only damage one of the wizard's creatures. So clearly the game rules have said, this blast of fire cannot do the thing that you want to do. Sorry, you should have chosen better. Sorry, the tactical choices that you've made have led to these tactical consequences. But someone might, in a moment of desperation and thinking about rule 0 and the rule of cool, might say, hey, Game Master, I've got this firebolt spell, right? And if you think about it, it's a blast of fire that does 3 damage to a creature. Now, I know that the evil wizard isn't technically a creature, right? But he is just a guy, so he's not really that different than a creature. So, don't you think I should, be able to hit him with my firebolt? Maybe, I don't know, maybe I have to, dig deep and summon extra energy to be able to target him, or maybe, the DC or something goes up because, that would be cool and I want to win and I don't want to lose. And, as game masters, we're sort of told, you want to encourage, right? You want to encourage player creativity. Okay. That's what we're told to do, right? And so in a sense, you almost feel like if I tell my player, no, you can't do that, that's not what the rules say, I think everybody at the table, including you as the game master, might feel like, oh my God, I'm just being this horrible GM who isn't being flexible and isn't embracing the rule of cool or the rule 0. And I'm just being a stonewall railroady GM. And a lot of players might actually feel like, oh, you just want us to lose and you just want us to, be abandoned. But like the point of that is though, it's not that doing that is a bad thing. I think you can do that. The problem is if you can't do both at the same time, right? If you have a tactical agenda, I think, then if you allow people to start using their powers and abilities in whatever creative, fun way that they could think of, that is totally fine. But then you have essentially eliminated the tactical agenda. Because now what your game is really about, it's not about you figuring out how to use your abilities to win. It's about figuring out how to convince the GM that your abilities do exactly what you want. So the best example that I ever had of this is I played a lot of Mutants and Masterminds. Okay. A lot of Mutants and Masterminds. This is a superhero role-playing game that was based off of the 3rd edition engine. Okay. And in Mutants and Masterminds, they had this very complicated PowerPoint system where you literally have to buy point by point by point every single ability that you have. Like, it's not just like, I put a point in flight. No, you have hundreds of these points. If you put 1 point into flight, it's like you can hover. 2 points to flight, you can fly about as fast as you could walk. 4 points of flight, and now you're flying around at a couple hundred miles per hour. 7 points of flight, and now you're flying, faster than a plane. 10 points of flight, and you are able to, circle the Earth in, a matter of seconds. So the game has all of these granular abilities, right? And, you take these points and you say, oh, okay, my character has the ability to do this with their firepower, right? They can blast an enemy with their firepower. But Mutants and Masterminds, it's very tactical. But Mutants and Masterminds, because it's superheroes, has an entirely other separate system called Extra Effort, which basically allows your character to dig deep and basically come up with a bullshit reason for why basically any of your powers can kind of do anything. Okay? Within reason, you have to convince the group, the game master, that whatever you're doing makes sense. So, for example, let's say that your character had a fire blast power. You took the power, you took 10 points of damage, you added 10 points of range to your damage. So it's a 20-point power, and what it does in the game rules is you target a creature and it deals damage. That's what your flame power does. That's what you bought it for. There are hundreds of effects in the rule book that you could have bought, but that's the one you bought. But you're playing the game, and the group is trapped, and everybody is trapped in restraints, right? These really thick metal restraints. And the villain is twirling his mustache and he's going to get away. And so you, as this fire character, say, hey, game master, can I heat up my hands so hot that the metal melts off and I break free from this restraint? Now, is that what your power does? No, your power does damage as a ranged attack. The game has mechanics for a power called drain toughness on materials, where it basically melts materials. So you don't have that power. But because this is Mutants and Masterminds, your character can use extra effort and dig deep. And basically, as long as the group all nod their head, including the game master, your character can absolutely melt the restraints with his burning hot fire. And as a result, even though the game has all of these powers and abilities and all this points and management and accounting, the fact of the matter, most of it doesn't matter. Because in my personal opinion, despite the game having a tactical framework, it is really focused on the creative agenda. Okay. And so as a result, is this dig deep mechanic limited by some kind of currency? No, it is not. So, right. Armored, actually, you just take fatigue. That's all you have to do. Hero points just let you cancel fatigue. So hero points don't actually enter into the equation of it at all. You just have to become fatigued. So, could your character do this every single round forever? No, but your character can basically do it once or twice a scene fairly easily. And if you do have hero points, then you can just do it carte blanche, however you want, because the hero point can immediately recover you one condition. So if your character were to dig deep and be a little fatigued from using their power, you could just spend the hero point and immediately recover from that. So, as a result of this, we had some of the most creative, fun, innovative, amazing sessions. I absolutely adored all of our Mutants and Masterminds campaigns. But years later, I went back and I played Mutants and Masterminds again with a new group. And we played the 3rd edition of Mutants and Masterminds. We had always played the 2nd edition, but the 3rd edition was pretty similar. And everybody's sitting there taking all their points and their accounting and their thing. And I realized none of the things that they're doing really matter. Like it matters on a very surface level, but at the end of the day, as long as your character has the right descriptor for their attack power or whatever, you could pretty much, and as long as you're creative, and as long as you can convince the game master that your creative idea is a good one, you can basically get away with anything. So the agenda of the game is creative, not tactical. Even then the game is set up to sort of look like it has a tactical agenda, because it basically says you should really pay attention to all these points that you're spending because they matter a lot. Because if, you want this ability, you have to take this ability. You want this ability, you have to take this ability. And, you'd see all these people really, poring over the pages and really being concerned about what they should be taking. But in the back of my head, I'm going, none of this really matters, because the game is set up to just sort of allow you to kind of do whatever you want. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that you cannot have a creative and a tactical agenda at the same time? Yeah, kind of, sort of. And I think what ends up happening with a lot of times, I don't think people appreciate this. But for me, this came to a head when I played 4th edition D&D. Because I ran this game for many, many years. And 4th edition D&D absolutely is set up as having a tactical agenda, right? You choose these powers, they are used in combat, and the objective in that combat is to use the powers that you have in order to achieve success. And you should care about what powers you're taking, and you should care about what feats and magical items that you have, because that's going to make a difference in the fight. But what I discovered as I was playing 4th edition D&D is that, especially when things started going a little rough, when the rules are on the player's side, aka, they're winning, they clearly are outmatched, they are clearly the superior force to their foes, then everybody's really fine using the rules. But when the tide starts to turn, when the heroes seemed a little bit on the ropes, when they seem a little bit desperate, suddenly players want to get very creative with the game rules. And they start throwing out innovative and new uses for their powers, which very conveniently solve the issue at hand, despite the fact that that is not what the power does. And I know that it is very simple as a game master. In fact, most of you probably do this, to say, well, I want to reward my players for being creative. Isn't that why we play role-playing games? And you are right to a certain extent. But what I am telling you is that when you do that, you are sacrificing the value of your tactical agenda. The mini game within your game becomes a lot less compelling, because the group knows that they don't really have to beat the tactical game. Okay? If we were playing chess, the tabletop role-playing game, okay, and your enemy king was here, and all I needed to do is capture him with my knight, but my knight was right here, and of course, well, okay, I'll say I put him in the wrong spot. Okay, my knight was right here, and of course, that is not how knights move in chess. All right, I'm one space short of capturing the king, but I go, oh well, my knight, he spurs his horse and he charges valiantly, and he's gonna like put all of his effort into it. He's gonna lean into his saddle, and maybe his horse is like pushed to the very limits of it, so that my knight can actually capture the king. Okay, you could do that, but realize that the value of the strategy and the tactics of playing chess go out the window if any time that you want to sort of make it easier on yourself, all you have to do is start being creative, and more importantly, change the game from being, I need to outplay my opponent, to I need to convince my opponent. Now, Kalamakis says, but what if you are creative within the rules? Like in the wizard example, what if you use a firebolt against a passing bat that falls on the wizard, and by falling, damages the 3 hit point of the wizard? Now, I think that would be fine. That being said, I guess it comes down to how, like what rules or what has been established about that bat before. Like, are you saying that bat is quantumly created by the player? Like, oh, maybe there's a bat flying overhead and I'll blast it and it'll fall down and it'll hit him. Because either way, you're turning the game from trying to beat it using the game rules to beating the game through creative use of your imagination. Now, I think that creative use of imagination is great and fun. In fact, most of my favorite games actually, in fact, despite everything I've just said, I mean, I think overall, I prefer a creative agenda to a tactical one. If I want to play a tactical agenda for a game, I usually will go play, Warhammer or something, or Magic the Gathering or a board game. I play TTRPGs to be creative, but the thing is so that's why I kind of get a little bit like, I don't really care about all this tactical stuff that I have on my character sheet, right? 90% of the feats that you get in a D&D game or a Pathfinder 2 game are tactical feats. They give you this very specific thing that you can now do within the rules. But if I and my players can just make something up, maybe talk to the GM a little bit, give a couple examples, right? It becomes like a lawyer, becomes like a trial, right? Your Honor, if you'll look at our evidence, you'll see that we have 3 solid points for why you should allow this. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. See, it all makes sense. It all makes fine. And then the GM goes, oh, okay. You've turned the game from trying to use these abilities to win a little sub mini game into this sort of weird creative tactical agenda. Now, I like that weird creative tactical agenda, that weird creative agenda. But if I'm doing that, then I don't want to focus on all of the minutia of whether or not my character has sudden charge or double slice or some obscure skill feat that lets me do something that pretty much any normal person you would imagine can do. So I don't know if Pumpkin's in the chat, but he was the one who suggested this topic. But I think it's important to realize something, which is whenever you change something, you change a lot. And sometimes sometimes aren't even aware of what you're changing. Right? Like it may seem it might seem harmless. It might seem like it's the best thing. And honestly, your group may never notice. And that's totally fine. But there are some people who kind of they're like, I don't understand why this Seal, why? We just leveled up. And I was looking at my feats and I was thinking, this kind of feels pointless. And I don't know why. I don't know why I don't know why I'm not excited to choose a feat. And the reason, again, the players may not even understand it consciously. It might just be a subconscious thing. But part of the reason might be because they realize that what's actually written down on their character sheet doesn't matter in your game. What matters in your game is, can you convince the game master that your course of action is a sound and logical one and therefore should be allowed in the context of the game? And so this decision of which feat to take or not is not as important as it might otherwise be. Now, Lollipop says, are there no frameworks that allow you to creatively interact with the environment and still be tactical at the same time? There is. Generally speaking, it is called Blades in the Dark. But you realize that you sacrifice a lot of tactical abilities there. So the way that Blades in the Dark works is Blades in the Dark takes this infinite creative space, right? This is like literally everything that your player could ever think of and they could ever want to do with their character. Okay. So it's obviously extremely complicated, right? Because this could literally be millions of different things that they could do or they would want to do in this situation. So what Blades in the Dark does is it maps whatever is inside of this creative space. It maps it to a very small and discrete subset of, in our case, position and effect and action. So basically, a character can describe whatever the hell they want to do. And then as a GM, I convert it into one of these 9 spots. Now, is it infinite? No, it isn't. It is a many to few relationship. Okay. You don't create a custom bespoke mechanic for every single thing that a character could ever do. You don't do that. There are rules. These are tactical, predictable outcomes and rules. But what you lose is the complexity of the tactical situation, right? If you think about Pathfinder 2, between all the feats and spells and different modifiers and position on the rule, I mean, the number of tactical positions that you could end up in Pathfinder 2 is probably infinite, right? But it certainly, there are probably dozens, if not hundreds of things that your character tactically could do. In Blades in the Dark, it really maps down to, desperate, limited, controlled, great, right? It breaks down to the position and effect. So the tactical game isn't super deep because really there's only, you're like, okay, well, what if I do this instead? And I do this, and I do this, and I do this. And I go, oh, that is a better idea. I think we can all agree that that is a better idea. Before you were desperate, limited, and you know what? That is a much better idea. So I'm going to say that you are now risky and standard effect, right? Not to sound like I'm belittling 5e, but I think it's like in 5e, if like you're like, hey, I want to do this and 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 this really cool idea, and I have this really great idea and all this other stuff, and the GM goes, yeah, okay, advantage, right? Like it's basically, are you doing the thing? Roll the die. Are you doing the thing, but you kind of have a good idea? Cool, advantage. And that's as tactical as it gets. In theory, in 5th edition D&D, you could pretty much map any good idea to just, okay, you have advantage. And I think a lot of people have a problem with that because they say, this isn't deep. This isn't complex enough. This is not deep. And you know what? You are correct. It is not. Blades in the Dark has a little bit more than just advantage or disadvantage, right? You've got position and effect, but it's still not as tactically deep as a game like Pathfinder 2nd edition. But the advantage you have is that it has the capability to map any theoretical action, right, to one of these tactical choices. And so while it is not a perfect 1-to-1 ratio, it is some sense of tactifying, tactizing the creative experience. Whereas if you are playing a game that has a very well-defined tactical agenda, all right, where, you know, you have just countless different options, you know, this is almost like a 3-dimensional grid, and like the number of potential play spaces is infinite. The idea is the way you arrive at these locations is through the rules, is through the choices that you make. So when you have a creative idea and you say, no, see, look, this creative idea gets me to right here, which is where I want to be. And you go, okay, but the place that you have chosen already exists in the game tactically. There's a feat. It's called double slice. It does exactly what your creative idea wants you to do. So if I allow you to do this double slice, I'm basically shitting on the decisions that you could have made to take double slice or not double slice. So that's, again, that is where, again, you could totally do that. A character goes, you know, you're playing. If I was playing 5e D&D, I don't even know what the rules are, because I don't know what the rules are to 5e D&D, which is why I have so much fun with it, because I don't know any of the rules. I literally do not know what the rule is, so I'm not even making this up. There's a ferocious combat. Somebody gets hit, and I roll really well on the damage, and my player goes, I raise my shield, and I go, oh yeah, totally. Your shield takes half the damage. I don't think that's a thing, by the way, at all in 5th edition. I don't think there's any rule that says you could do that, but I say, oh yeah, your shield takes half the damage, but it breaks in half and goes scattering from your hand. And the player's like, oh shit. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I reach down, I grab the fallen orc's axe, and now I got axe and sword, and I go in and I attack him with both weapons. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you totally do. Roll with advantage, but if they both hit, then you hit with both axe and sword, and we'll roll the damage twice, and it'll be awesome. And the player goes, oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun, but nobody knows what the hell's going on. There's no tactical, right? There's no because there's no player that goes, wait a second, why can he just dual wield? I had to take a feat to be able to attack with 2 weapons like that. So are you saying I don't need to do that? Are you saying I could choose something else? Are you saying that the choice I make doesn't matter? Are you saying that the only thing I gain by choosing a feat is that I don't have to play Mother May I with you when I want to engage in it? Because that feels like that's a little sus. So there is a lot of advantage to playing a tactical game, but then you're not allowed to just shit on that whenever it becomes inconvenient. All right. I see a lot of chats here. Mother May I is annoying PC GM dynamic to get locked into. It depends on the game, Fred. There are plenty of games where the Mother May I is what I'm there to play in a way. But if I'm playing one of those games, Fred, I don't want it to be a game where my player spent time agonizing over which, ability or feat or ability score improvement or, ancestry feat or whatever. Because if my player is taking that time to make that choice, I want to make that choice a meaningful one. And to do that, I kind of have to respect the tactical agenda of the game. Ayla probably disagrees with me. Creativity within the spirit of the rules is what I'm about, because creativity should matter in a TTRPG, but so should the rules. A robust mechanical representation of the fiction is the solution. And this is traditionally the siren call, of the simulationists, right? Of the true simulationists, where they say, I want a rule set that essentially lets me adjudicate anything, because that way, when someone does something really creative, I'm able to map it to something in the rule set. The problem with that, Ayla, comes when you start talking about purely mechanical constructs like feats And what does that mean for your game world? And what does that mean for your simulationist rule set? Convincing the GM may in fact be, I have this ability on my character sheet. And you know what the quid pro quo of that, Galerian, in depth, is that can also lead to a anti-creative agenda, right? Where a GM challenges a player to describe how or why their character is able to do this thing in this moment, asking for a creative agenda. And the player goes, oh, no, I don't do that. I just have it on my sheet, so I can do it. And they're not wrong, but you could see where having the tactical element backfired on the GM's attempt to create a creative agenda, because the players like, I don't have to do this. It's on my sheet, right? So that's the difference. Apparently, I have epitomized the 5e experience with good idea, you get advantage. And to be clear, I think that that's fantastic. But I'm also not looking for a super hyper in-depth tactical game when I play 5th edition D&D. I barely know the rules to 5th edition D&D. I'm looking for something fast, quick. When I play 5th edition D&D with my group, we had 6 or 7 players. A combat round took less than 5 minutes. And I usually had somewhere between 20 to 30 monsters. 5 minutes to get all the way back around the table. Very quick, right? Rules did not matter. It was just like go, 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 go. But then I didn't expect my players to be sitting there going, oh, should I take this feat or should I take this feat? And what's the best build? And should I go 2 levels in Warlock before I go Sorkadin? Like, no, it wasn't about that. But I didn't know the rules, so it worked out well. Why do I feel like Derek is canceling the first episode of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? I do not know what Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is. I have only played Shadowrun once, and I did not enjoy it, but honestly, the whole like cyberpunk thing is not really my favorite genre, so it kind of misses me with that. I like to GM games where I'm not the arbitrator of the universe. Now, Jackal, this is... I understand that sentiment a lot. I'm sort of torn because, again, the players and I sort of negotiating for position is some of my favorite elements of the game. But I have to be playing a game where that is supported, you know? So that's where it's different. Cadman, I like to use a mix. I allow the creative use, but it has a greater risk than the feat-based approach. I don't feel that shits on either player, but it allows the exciting moment. I've heard this a lot, and I think that is a totally acceptable and totally fine way to do it. The only thing is that I'm reminded of 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, in 2nd edition, okay, in 2nd edition, here we go. In 2nd edition AD&D, okay, Rangers, because Dritz Stewardin had come out, could dual wield, okay? But there was really, there was no way for any character who wasn't a ranger to dual wield. So when 3rd edition D&D came out, they said, look, anyone can dual wield. Because why shouldn't you be able to dual wield? Dual wield just means picking up 2 swords and attacking with them. But the problem was, and they had some feats. They had feats like 2-weapon fighting. And they had feats like ambidexterity. But the problem is, without those feats, they were right. Anyone could dual wield with a -6 and a -10 penalty to your attack rolls. Which was basically the same thing as saying, it was almost more mocking. It's like when, let's say something is not available at all. And then, no one can buy it. And then they say, we're finally making it available it is going to be available to the public, and everyone's like, yay. And they're like, it is going to cost $100 million. And it's like, okay, so it's still not available. So I played a lot of 3rd edition D&D, a lot of 3rd edition D&D. Let me tell you something. Nobody ever dual wield, okay, that didn't have 2-weapon fighting and ambidexterity. Okay. So like, the point is that like, even though they said you could do it, you really couldn't. And so I think that the risk of what you are talking about here is that you seem like you're trying to allow a creative agenda, which is fine, but by making it cost more, or a lot of times I hear people say, make the DC higher or take more actions, you are punishing or penalizing characters for trying to do something that isn't on their character sheet. And by and large, on the long-term scale of a game, what gets rewarded gets repeated, okay? And what gets punished gets, avoided. And players instinctively will figure this out, and they will basically go, oh, okay, like it's like training a dog. If when the dog goes to do something that you don't want it to do, you say, no, don't do that. Bat it on the nose or spray it with a bottle of water or put it in its crate for 5 minutes. The dog is going to learn, you know what? It's just better if I don't do it. I should just do the things that I'm supposed to do. I should do the things that I get rewarded for doing. So you are punishing the player for being creative. It seems backwards, but you are punishing the player for being creative. And so whether or not that affects your player's behavior, that depends on how much your players are really aware of what's going on, how often they do it. There's a million variables here. But the fact of the matter is that when I hear people say, oh, I let people do whatever, I just make it take 2 actions or 3 actions, or I make the DC higher or whatever. Those are all basically saying you're making this a lot worse. And as a result, the player should just do what's on their fucking sheet, because you're in a combat, it's not the time to be dilly-dallying around for shits and giggles. So anyways, that was kind of my thought there. Regarding feats, an important question to ask is, would this logically require a period of practice and expertise to do? If so, it's probably okay for it to be a feat. Otherwise, it should not be a feat. Interesting. It's a great question. I'm sort of torn myself, actually, on what a feat should or shouldn't be. I've been playing D&D with feats since 3rd edition, so 24 years, and I still don't quite fully grasp. Let me give you a great example of this. Okay. 4th edition D&D, a game that everybody always says that we love to death. Okay. 4th edition D&D has a table, or has a page in the DMG page 42. Actually, let me see. I might just have it. Let me see if I can go grab that really quickly. And by the way, it's also really funny and easy, and also done deliberately, that 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, like a good, like a good Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy person would know. Okay. So on page 42, they have an entire section here about levels, about basically a table for people kind of making shit up, right? And this table ostensibly is very, very, very useful, okay? Because it goes, this is about, 4th edition, right? This is the game that has, it's World of Warcraft, right? You've got 3 powers on your character sheet, and that's the only thing that you can do, right? And so ostensibly, this table alone seems to just completely shit on that entire idea. In fact, this page here, page 42, says, what do you do if someone does something that the rules don't cover? For example, Shira, the 8th level rogue, wants to try the classic swashbuckling move of swinging on a chandelier and kicking an ogre in the chest on her way down to the ground, hoping to push the ogre into a brazier of burning coals behind it. Okay, great. It says this sort of action is exactly the kind of thinking that you want to encourage. So you pick an easy DC. Now, right off the bat, you can see where GM bias is entering into the equation, because instead of it being based off of how difficult that maneuver would be, they are basically saying you're basing it off of how much you actually want to see it happen. But here's where the problem is. This is not 4th edition's fault. These damage expressions that you see here are, by design, lower or less than the damage that your power could just do. So in the case of our 8th level rogue swashbuckler character, chances are very, very good that the optimal thing for her to do the most damage would have been just to use her level 7 encounter power, because that plus sneak attack would have done more damage than any of these equations were going to do. And the game does that because it goes, look, we can't, the powers that people are choosing, that's part of our tactical agenda. And so my play group, when we first started playing 4th edition, they used to do this stuff all the time. And, I wasn't, look, I like to think I was a good GM, but I've got 10 more years, 12, 15 more years after that. So I like to think I'm better now than I was then. But the fact of the matter is, when I was playing it back then, I just said, oh yeah, cool. They've got this awesome table. And I use this all the time through heroic. But my players instinctively understood at a certain point, once they got to a certain level, they went, man, Derek's just using the damage from the expression. This damage sucks. I'm just going to use my powers because I could be creative and have fun and try to do the cool thing, but the damage is less than what I get when I just use my power. And as a result, my players, by the time they reached Paragon tier and certainly into Epic tier, no longer did what I would call improvised type actions, because they figured out that it wasn't optimal to do so. Because 4th edition had created a situation where it was focused on the tactical agenda, but it was trying to give you this creative solution so that players could have their cake and eat it too. The game could be tactical, but also allow for creativity. But the problem is, when you do that, if you respect the tactical agenda, then you have to make the creative stuff harder to do, much less powerful, a lot weaker, not do as much damage, not be as effective, have a higher DC, have a less effect. You pick your poison. The fact of the matter is, at a certain point, players go, yeah, I want my turn to matter, so I'm going to not do that. So this is where this idea is cool in theory, but in practice, it kind of oftentimes falls short. And Tim in chat reminding us to never forget our towel. Merry Christmas, Tim. Good to see you on here, buddy. Let's see here. Fred says players should reap the benefits of distinct mechanical choices that they had to make for their character if the system involved those things. And Fred, I more or less agree with you, despite the fact that I really love creative agendas and I want my players to come up with crazy ideas, and I want to sort of go back and forth with them and negotiate on what this thing is going to cost them and but the reason that I sometimes stay away from games like 5th edition or Pathfinder 2 or even 4th edition D&D is because I do enjoy that back and forth. And I do think that when you do the back and forth in a game that has all these tactical mini choices, you're taking something away from the player's agency and you're taking something away from the player's choice. Lollipop Candy, by the way, before I even brought up this table, bring in, so is higher DC or more actions like using the improvised damage rules from D&D 4E? Yes, exactly. Hey, Point Blank, Dritz turned Rangers into a dual wielders. I know, Point Blank. If you go to our, we did a thing on Rangers. I don't know if we ever did the one on Rangers, but we definitely did one near Rangers. And I talked about Rangers and about how Rangers, in my personal opinion, got completely ruined by Dritz Duerden and, wow. Between Dritz Duerden and like MMOs, Rangers got turned into this weird class that I don't even understand what the hell it does anymore. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Look at that. It's already almost 9:30. Geesh, wow. We're going in. So yeah, so part of the reason, whoop, went to the wrong one. Part of the reason why I like game systems like Blades in the Dark and Powered by the Apocalypse is because they support that creative agenda really well. In fact, arguably, they kind of only work for the creative agenda because that's the way that those games are structured. So why isn't that the only game that I play? Because I like tactical games. You know, I was talking about Magic the Gathering and board games and war games. I like those games. You like those games. We all like those games. And I get that we want to have our cake and eat it too. But the truth of the matter is, it is really tough to do what Lollipop is suggesting. It's really tough to sort of balance giving players meaningful tactical choices that they make in character building, that they make in a combat, versus allowing creativity to sort of let players kind of skirt around those limitations, right? If a player's being creative, it's because, more or less, the rules are basically saying you can't do that thing that you are trying to do. Now, sometimes somebody might say, well, there are no rules for that. That may be true, but a lot of these really tactical games, the rules are inclusionary, not exclusionary, right? The rules say, this is what you can do, full stop. They don't say, you know, where does it say you can't do it? You're right. It doesn't have, it's not a 55,000 page rule book that lists every single thing you can't do. Using the logic of the rules don't say I can't. I've seen this used by rules lawyers before in board games and for years. It is a horrible reasoning. I don't know if it's got like a term for why it's ad nauseum or straw man or ad absurdum. It's a horrible ruling. So whenever anybody says, well, the rules don't say I can't do it, that is a horrible line of reasoning. And so most rule sets in these games are pretty much like, if there's a rule and it clearly states that you can or can't do this thing, that's the rule. Now there are plenty of instances that come up that are just like, there's no rule for this. The game has never even thought about it. There's no potential there's no possible way that you could get step on anybody's toes. But in my humble opinion, some of these games like Pathfinder 2 have really gone out of their way to try to really plug up all of those loopholes and try to plug up all of those missing rulings and try to create spells and abilities that are kind of airtight, right? That are kind of like, no, listen, we designed this thing to basically, you can do it. You can do this and you can't do anything else. So basically what you're saying is that Mutants and Masterminds is the best system. It's definitely one of the best. But again, my problem with Mutants and Masterminds, Armin Anathema, is I love Mutants and Masterminds. I don't care about the PowerPoints. I don't care about I skip all that. I don't even care anymore because it matters. It's so unimportant to me. If players can kind of do whatever they want to do with their powers within reason of the descriptors and all that other stuff. Anyways, the individual, what we call PowerPoint accounting, doesn't really matter. But I've run 5, maybe 6 full Mutants and Masterminds campaigns. One of my favorite systems for all time. And I've run them in 1st edition, and I've run them in 2nd edition, and I've run them in 3rd edition. And they were all pretty good. 2nd edition, by far, is my favorite. Let's see here. Bruno and Ayla are talking. I feel like, sorry, I missed this here. Here we go. I feel like creative actions like that should have a resource cost more than it does an effectiveness cost. Now, Nutmegnog, there I agree with you. But the question is, what resource cost? Right. And is it a meaningful cost? A lot of times people will include a resource cost, but it's kind of a meaningless resource cost. Like imagine if you made hit points a cost. But in most of these games, you can get back your hit points so easily. So it's not really a resource. This goes back to previous times where Derek said something like a character sheet in some systems tells you what you can't do more than what you can do. And I completely agree with this. And that's on purpose, right? The when you draw an opening hand of cards in a game like Magic the Gathering, your 7 cards, that is the only thing in the entire universe of the game that you can do. You can't, it doesn't matter what's in your deck. It doesn't matter what is in the game. It doesn't matter what creative, cool idea you're thinking of. You can only do those 7 things because that is what is in your, and that's what makes the game fun. And that's what makes the game engaging. And that's what makes the game compelling. And this is why people spend all this time looking over their books and looking over Path Builder or looking over D&D Beyond, because they're trying to build this kind of solid, reliable character that can interact with the mechanics across the game in a wide spectrum, in an effective manner that will bring victory and will bring success. Because that challenge, I mean, this is why we play board games, why people play Magic the Gathering and spend all this time tinkering with their decks, right? Because you're looking for that combination of abilities and cards or whatever that is going to give you the success that you are hoping to find. But if I can just draw my opening card of hand of 7 cards and just go, yeah, this card doesn't do what I want it to do, but I'll just make it up and be like, oh, well, you see, I really need this card to draw me some cards. And you could see where like the theme of the card is kind of like about knowledge. And so like, I'll lose some life as I dig deep, and then I'll use this card to draw cards instead. And it's like, no, like, what are we even doing here? The choices of then the choices that you the cards might as well be blank at that point. The cards might as well be blank, and they should just say written. They should just say on it, make up some bullshit and do whatever you want. That's all I'm saying. Rocket. What is Rocket? Rocket has had good luck in the past 3 months using hit dice as a stress. And allowing most Blades in the Dark mechanics in 5e. It's provided a fairly limited amount of creativity on top of a fairly rigid 5e implementation. I could see where that could start to work. Rocket Vault Games. I did something similar when I played my sort of D&D 5e, 5 Torches Deep hack that we call Dungeon Time Extreme, where there was a resource called Resilience, which was tied to your Constitution score. And there was a resource called Willpower, which was tied to your Wisdom score. And these resources, the Willpower resource could be used to get back spells or limited use abilities, supernatural abilities. And Resilience could be used to get back hit points, a la hit dice. But even at level 1, though, you had like 15 of them or 14 of those. It was equal to your con score. It wasn't equal to 1 like it is in 5e, where it's equal to your level. But I would... You know, if someone got hit by a trap, I might say, oh, you take 3 resource damage, 5 or 3 resilience damage, 5 resilience damage. If a powerful evil specter emerged from a crypt and everybody was like, I might be like, everybody takes 2 willpower damage. So, and when someone would get really creative or come up with some bullshit thing, I might say, okay, I'll let you do that, but you have to risk 3 willpower. You have to risk 3 resilience. So it was me trying to bring in resource mechanics as a way to allow that to happen. But again, I can't stress this enough. In that game, I really wasn't that concerned with the tactical agenda. Hot take. Muse and Masterminds is better for fantasy games than 5e or Pathfinder. I think the swords, this is for Muse and Masterminds 2nd edition. There was the Swords and Sorcery supplement. I think it's awesome. I would love to play a fantasy Mutes and Masterminds game using the Swords and Sorcery. Did you talk about Dragonbane's stunt terrain cards that you can spend? Dr. Watts, I do not know anything about Dragonbane. I'm playing it tomorrow for the first time. So Bob is going to teach us, and we're playing a one shot. It's me, Bob, his brother, and his brother's friend. I don't know anything about Dragonbane. Like Jace is in the card art. I can clearly draw my whole deck, and I can Fate Seal you. Do I think that Ars Magica's spell system creates a good compromise between tactical and creativity? Yes. With the caveat of it's really complicated. Yes. But it's really complicated. Like creating that stuff on the fly is no joke. And I could really see a game grinding to a halt as somebody tries to spontaneously cast a spell, and you're trying to figure out all of its components and the power level and the effect and all this other stuff. I could see that being a very big drag for sure. All right. Well, as a reminder, this stream and all of the streams this week, because we are going to be streaming tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Wednesday and Friday streams are going to be earlier in the day, so be on the lookout for that. Tomorrow's stream was supposed to be a group stream, me, Bob, and Aaron, but Aaron is going to be still super busy at work. He's an extremely dedicated man to his family, to this channel, and to his employer. So no, hardest working man I've ever met in my entire life on every single possible level. That man does not half-ass anything. He only whole-asses things. And that means that sometimes other things get sacrificed in the pursuit of doing it right. Anyways, so Aaron's not going to be around. So I don't know what tomorrow's stream is going to be. It could be a stream with Bob up at the studio. We'll be talking about our Dragonbane experience. I don't know. We'll see what Bob's availability is. I don't know. The kids are home. It's break. I don't know exactly what his domestic situation is going to be, but we've got a couple different streams that are going to come on this week. And these streams are all because of viewers like you. And we had some tip goals, and we have an incredible Patreon. And this is definitely a celebration of you and those patrons and everybody else who contributes to the success of this channel. So I want to say thank you so much for that. So, just be aware. We're going to be here a lot this week. So if it feels like we didn't get to everything, that's all right. We got a lot of streaming to go. London says custom ritual systems for the win. Now, I'm a big fan of custom ritual systems, which is great for magic. What if you're not magical, though? That's where it kind of becomes a little bit tricky. That's where a lot of times, like, the creativity is kind of. This is a gap in the system that I myself sometimes struggle with, London, which is how do you allow the martial character to be creative without violating the tactical agenda? Jackal, are you a Fabula patron? I am. Apparently, Emmanuel released some possible change to the core rulebook. Initiative is simplified. If there's a villain, enemies go first. No villain, players go first. Oh, well, that is way better. I hated the initiative. I've talked about this before, but I hate initiative rolls, period. I really dislike them in games that are supposed to be super fast and quick. So, great. In fact, I think that was the rule that I suggested. I think I said, no, here's what my rule was: players go first. If there's a villain, that's when we roll the initiative, to see if who goes first. Because I was like, if it's just against normal monsters or whatever, the player should absolutely go first. But if it's just, the villain goes first, I'm not bad about that. The only thing I would say is that, like, with the limitation that, like, maybe the villain, I don't know, maybe it's fine that the villain just goes first straight up. I don't know. But I definitely like the idea that if it's not a villain, the players just go first. That's just so easy. That's just so much easier. He definitely whole-assed that remaster video. Exactly, London. Even when Smith does a joke, he puts more effort into a joke video. And for those of you who aren't members of the Nice Last Call Patreon, Aaron from this channel did like a 2.5 hour of like something. I don't know. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hour long review of all the remastered classes, but he did it as like a joke, but he actually ends up going through like every single thing and just making like, making fun of certain things and sort of, making a big stink about things. But like, that was him and that was a video that was only released to our patrons, but like, that was him just like making a joke. He put more effort into that than most other content creators put into their real videos. So, yeah, the Fabula Ultimate Initiative, I don't want to say it sucks, but it was not great. Like, I mean, it used the group check system, which was fine. And it's not like each individual person has to roll their initiative, but it was clunky and This is a much better fix. I can absolutely say that. Dungeon World made it so that I loathe initiative. Honestly, Dan, me too. The first time that I played Dungeon World at Gen Con many years ago, and with a competent game master who was just able to just I was kind of like, wow, this is amazing. I was like, and the fact that like the GM didn't get a turn, but like the combat always felt like it felt like it was always my turn somehow. And like if I really needed to do something, I felt like I could. But like a lot of it was just me managing and self-managing, or me being managed by the game master, but me also self-managing myself. Like me basically going like, all right, like I'm going to let Dan have this moment. Like I had a really cool idea. There's no initiative order. I could have totally interjected here, but you know, Dan has a great idea too. And it's Dan's moment to shine. I'm going to just hold back for a moment. Right. So it works well when you have a group of players who are very, aware. I could see where it could be tough if you've got people who are very loath to assert themselves, or if you have people who are too willing to assert themselves and just hog all the spotlight. You do need a good balance to be able to do. But when you do that, oh man, it sings. It sings. I feel called out. No, I'm calling out all content creators. Are there any good Dungeon World live plays so that I can get a hang of how to run it? Well, no. Adam Kobel, who is one of the co-creators of Dungeon World, used to do live plays of Dungeon World, but he made some really bad choices about what to cover and how to cover it and what content to put into his game. And I think all of those games got deleted. I could be wrong. So I don't even know if those are available anymore, but you know, he was kind of the GOAT. But the problem with those game sessions, in my personal opinion, like most, see, here's the thing, folks. I like musicals. Okay. But I was never a theater kid. Okay. And so while I am totally capable of cringe, and I'm 100% sure that there are times when we are doing stuff on this channel in our actual plays that is cringy, of course, by and large, you know, I'm here to just like have fun and, you know, just go with the flow and have good laughs and make some fun memories. Sometimes some of the groups that are really good at Dungeon World, some of the people who get put together to put a Dungeon World actual play, or even the co-creators of Dungeon World, they are very like theatrical, and they are theater kids, and they can kind of overdo it and oversell it a little bit in a way that I feel like it's fine. I'm just saying it's not representational of the way that most people's experiences at their table is going to go. It's just like Critical Role, right? Critical Role is not what 99.9% of D&D players' table experience will look like, even if you're trying to emulate what they do on the show. It just won't. They're way better at it, and they've got a professional, and they're being paid to do it. Like, there's a lot of things there. So, in a similar way, Fabula and 13th Age have given me a disdain for grid-based combat. Honestly, that's probably the biggest hurdle that I have right now to Aaron and Bob's desire to play 4th edition D&D. I like 4th edition D&D, the powers and the roles. I like all that stuff. I am just really loath to bust out the grid. And I just, the grid, it for me, it just slows things down, and I think it just limits the player experience. It increases the tactical experience 100-fold. And by and large, I think you need it for 4th edition D&D to have its truest effect. Everything is done in a very tactical way, with squares mattering, counting, you know, all the speeds and the pushes and the pulls and the slides. So yeah, that's my biggest reservation about digging back into 4th edition. Thoughts on rolling initiative at the beginning of the session, end of combat in Fantasy 20 games? I just don't like rolling initiative, period. So I'm the wrong person to ask. like when we played 5th edition D&D, we used D6 group initiative. So I rolled a D6 for the monsters. The players rolled a D6 for them. One person in the party. We just rolled them out in front. We rolled it every round. And there's no modifiers. Whoever rolled higher acted first. If we rolled the same number, everything happened at the same time. And that was it. But we didn't have a grid, and everything was theater of the mind. And we used a phased system. So we'll just go here. So this is like a combination of like AD&D plus basic plus 5th edition D&D that doesn't actually exist in any of those frameworks. So what we did is you had the following phases. You had ranged, bonus, movement, melee, magic, and delay. So basically what we'd do is at every combat round, I would go around the table really quickly to each player, and I would basically say, "What are you doing this round?" And each player had to tell me what they were doing. And basically you were telling me which phase you were going. I'm shooting a bow. I'm going to move and I'm going to attack a guy, right? I'm going to start casting a spell. So everybody had to say that first. Then whoever was sort of like the leader of the group would roll D6. I would roll D6 for the enemy. And let's say the players rolled a 4 and I rolled a 3. So then what would happen is in the ranged segment, the PCs would go first, then the DM would go. Then in the bonus segment, the PCs would go, then the DM would go. And then the movement, the PCs, then the DM, and so forth and so on. So it was kind of more like an alternating initiative, but through the phases of the combat round. So as a result, and by the way, so like if you said, because remember, you had to tell me what you were doing before we rolled this initiative. So the idea was that if your character was casting a spell, you actually started casting here, and you've been casting for the entire combat round. So if you took damage from a bow and arrow or from a melee strike, that counted as disrupting your spell and required a concentration check, or you would lose the spell. And then if somebody said, I'm going to kill a guy, but or I'm going to chop down a guy, but he got killed by, let's say, the archer in the first part of the game, that's when you would come here at the end. If you sort of want to do something different, you were penalized by having to do it at the end of the round. And then once we got to the end of the round, we would repeat it. I would say, what are you doing? 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 So everybody's choices are locked in at one go. And then we'd roll D6 again, and we would go through the whole order again. So that's how we did initiative in Dungeon Time Extreme. So obviously not like 5th edition, but it was its own thing. So basically the Mercer effect. Yeah, basically the Mercer effect. Yes, correct. Theater of the Mind 4th edition. Mark could do it. Oh yeah, well Mark could totally do it. Yeah, Mark was born to do it. With Fantasy Grounds, we have initiative resolve with everyone with one click. Would you like it better if it was that easy? I've used initiative on Foundry and Roll20, and I still don't like it. I don't know how to tell it. I don't like the idea that it's like it's my turn, and then it's not my turn, and then it's everybody else's turn forever until back to me. I like having my turn feel more fluid than that, and being able to be broken up throughout the course of the game. I don't know. The sort of cyclical initiative system is just not one that I'm particularly in love with these days. That may change, but right now, not my favorite thing. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because I'm going to be back tomorrow, so I don't want to go too long. So again, thank you so much, everybody. I set that tip of $150 for the week goal to just kind of say like, hey, support everybody. But you guys did a great job of nearly knocking it out in our first stream. So really, really looking forward to that. And again, tomorrow we might be back with Bob. We'll have to see. Ben showing up just as I'm about to sign off. Yep. There, Rocket Vault Games. This is an idea that no offense to Dungeon Coach. He's really good at what he does, but what he does is he takes really good ideas from other games and he kind of takes the best parts of them and puts them into his game, which is acceptable. And there's been games out there like, Forbidden Lands does this, and one of the other games does this where you can basically use your actions you can use your actions to parry, or I can't remember. Forbidden Lands definitely does this, but basically you get less actions than on your turn. And you agree. And again, I'm not knocking them. And some of my favorite games have been because people stole really good ideas from other ideas and sort of combine it. Yes, Traveler, I think, does that as well. I think you're right. I actually think you are correct. So what do I think of the MCDM RPG initiative? Isn't it just popcorn? Isn't it just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? I could be wrong. Or semi-popcorn, or alternate activation. Popcorn is not the correct term. Popcorn is a little bit different, but alternate activation. Yeah, you can dodge, but then you take a penalty on your turn. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of the same basic idea, which, to be fair, I love having agency when it is not my turn, and that is my biggest problem with the classic cyclical initiative system. I have no agency when it is not my turn. So there you go. I mean, I can completely agree with Ayla's statement here that you need something to keep you engaged, even if it's something like a dodge or attack of opportunity or something, something, I don't know, something that you could do to make you feel like you have some decisions to be making when it is not your turn. So, well, Ben, sorry to miss you, but hopefully you enjoyed your Doctor Who show, but I'll be back tomorrow with maybe with Bob. So hopefully I will see you all there. And if not, I'll see you Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. We're going to be back, and we're going to be back. We're going to be back. The patrons have some interesting votes for us. So we've got looking forward to, and I don't know exactly which ones of these we're going to go with, but we also have Ryu Tama First Look, a game of Microscope, maybe the Knights making Forbidden Lands characters, talking about our Dragonbane game with Bob, looking over the Strike RPG, which is a game I've referenced several times in this strategy, looking at some of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons modules and kind of going over them and talking about why I like them. Maybe take a look at some of the maps, maybe take a look at some of the encounters, some of the spoilers. That could be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing one of the streams is going to be about Wild Sea, which is, of course, the absolutely stunning, gorgeous game from MythWorks, and it's almost more like a coffee table book really than an RPG. Just absolutely stunning game with a very strange and unusual premise, but it is an absolutely interesting game. And so we're going to be taking our first look at the Wild Sea this week as well. So we got a couple first looks, we got a couple deep dives. We got a couple philosophical conversations, and hopefully we'll get Ben. And maybe we'll get Bob. So we'll see it. Ayla, fun stream. Much love. Much love, that is. Much love to the KOLC community. Yes. Much love to all of you. Because thank you, Ayla, for that. Yes, this community is absolutely, short of my very nearest and dearest friends, these are the people I spend the most time communicating and talking with. So it is a fantastic community to be a part of, and I am honored to have. I won't even say lead it, because at this point I don't think I do. I would say to have initiated it. So we'll say that. All right, everybody. I will catch you tomorrow on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Peace. Peace. Peace.